February 17th, 1872, Cleveland, Ohio. A 32-year-old man sits across the desk from one of the largest oil refiners in the city. The refiner has been losing money for months. He knows it. The man across from him, he knows it too. The 32-year-old slides a piece of paper across the table, and on it, a number. The refiner looks at it, looks up. He doesn't want to sell. He built this company from nothing. But the man across from him has already done the math, already talked to the banks, already made sure the refiner cannot borrow another dollar in this city. So the refiner signs. The 32-year-old takes the paper, folds it, and moves to the next name on the list. Over the next 28 days, he will do this 22 more times. 23 companies, 1 month. Historians will call it the Cleveland Massacre because of the quick financial turnover of so many companies. The man's name, who forced those companies into submission, is John D. Rockefeller, and he is about to become the richest human being who has ever lived. Most people know the name Rockefeller. Few people know what he actually did, and almost nobody talks about the fact that his playbook, the exact strategies he used to build a $340 billion fortune, are the same strategies that work for building wealth today. Buying boring businesses instead of chasing shiny ones, acquiring competitors instead of fighting them, compounding relentlessly, and leveraging other people's capital. I think Rockefeller might be the most misunderstood entrepreneur in history. You see, everyone remembers the monopoly. Nobody remembers that he started as a 16-year-old bookkeeper, making $3.50 a week. So today, I want to tell you his story from the beginning. We're going back to the 1800s. I'm going to walk you through the rise of John D. Rockefeller, and at each turning point, I'll show you the principle he used, why it worked, and how you can steal his homework. Chapter 1, The Bookkeeper. Rewind to September 26, 1855, Cleveland, Ohio. A 16-year-old kid is walking the streets looking for work. He's got nothing, no contacts, no connections, certainly no college degree. He's just got a list of businesses and the willingness to knock on doors every single day, 7 days a week, until somebody says yes. Now, someone did actually say yes to him. So he started working as a bookkeeper at a small commodities firm for $3.50 a week. Most kids would have treated it as a stepping stone, something to tolerate until something better came along. Rockefeller treated it like the most important job in the world. He inspected every line of every bill that passed through that office. He knew the firm's books better than the founders did. He understood where money came from, where it disappeared to, and why. He was building this mental model of how a business actually works from the inside out. The lesson? Do the plumbing. I'm talking about the invisible architecture underneath every business, how money actually moves, where it enters, where it leaks. At 16, Rockefeller was already analyzing the numbers and asking why. Why does this cost more than that? Why does the supplier charge more than the competitor? Every invoice was a question. That's how you learn the plumbing. Instead of skimming, you interrogate that motherfucker. You read the vendor contracts. You find out why a cost exists before you decide whether it should. No detail is beneath you. You cannot see all of the lever points that people use as marionettes in their life until you know how healthy the pipes actually are. So Rockefeller celebrated the day he got that bookkeeping job every year for the rest of his life. I love this. He called it Job Day because he realized even at 16 that it was the day someone handed him a map to the inside of business, and he studied every road on it. So should you. Chapter 2, The Greatest Borrower. So fast forward to 1863. Rockefeller's 23 years old. The Civil War is ripping the country apart. An oil boom is quietly exploding in the hills of western Pennsylvania. Wildcatters are getting rich. Fortunes made and lost in the same week. Rockefeller is watching all this. Then he makes a decision that most people would have gotten totally backwards. He doesn't go drill for oil. He goes into refining. The boring, unglamorous, industrial middle step between turning crude oil into usable kerosene. Everyone else is chasing the discovery. Rockefeller positions himself at the choke point, the place where every barrel of oil in the region has to pass through. Then he starts borrowing aggressively. His business partner later says he is the greatest borrower he has ever seen in his life. But his other partners panic. They tell him he's over-leveraged, he's going to sink the company. Rockefeller, he's steady. He says, We have an opportunity now to expand. It may not last long. So when his partners finally try to force a showdown, he engineers a buyout. He has secretly lined up outside financing before the meeting even starts, and he wins every auction for the company's assets. The next day, the newspapers in Cleveland announced that a 25-year-old now owns one of the largest refineries in the world. I love this lesson. Rockefeller understood that opportunity has a clock. Oil refining in the 1860s, booming. Infrastructure, chaotic. Competitors were a mess. That time, he knew was never going to be the same again. So his partners started freaking out. They hesitated. They wanted more certainty, more time to think, more data. And that instinct, that's not irrational. It feels like you're being smart. But in a fast-moving market, hesitation is its own kind of risk. Because, it turns out the biggest fortunes in history are not built by people who moved safely. They're built by people who moved before the window closed. So entrepreneurs move when the window opens. Rockefeller didn't have a guarantee. You can't always wait for certainty. He had conviction. He knew there was a timeline, but most importantly, he moved. Chapter 3, the edge nobody saw. By his mid-20s, Rockefeller has a good refinery. But good isn't going to be enough. While his competitors focus obsessively on refining capacity with bigger facilities and faster output, Rockefeller does what he has always done. He looks for ways to get creative. Remember, he understands the plumbing, and that helped him see a full picture of what else he had right at his fingertips. He realized every barrel of oil refined in Cleveland still had to travel to market, and the transportation costs were higher than his refining costs. So at that time, railroads are charging everyone the same posted rate, 60 cents a barrel. Feels fair, and yet it's a major pain point, eating into revenue for every refiner in the region. Rockefeller does something brilliant. He intentionally built his refinery next to both a railroad and a river, giving him a shipping alternative 50% cheaper than anything his competitors can access. Then he brings in a partner to negotiate in secret with the railroads. Everyone else pays 60 cents a barrel to ship. After negotiations, Rockefeller pays 50. Now, it doesn't seem like much maybe, but that 10-cent difference, invisible to the market, but it adds up. It compounds into $50,000 a year in hidden profit, which back then was millions. So he made an even bigger play with that extra money. He loops his competitors into it. He offers to ship his competitors' oil through his network at rates better than they can negotiate alone. Now he makes money on every barrel his competitors move. He turned his edge into infrastructure and his competitors actually into his customers. It's brilliant. The lesson is, everyone else thought the oil business was about oil. Rockefeller knew money could be made inside the system, inside the transportation needed to make it all go. So that's where he invested more energy to expand and build speed. This way of thinking separates the wealthy players in every industry. For me, the best investments I've made as a CEO isn't software. It's one person whose entire job is AI transformation. They don't care about titles, they just build. They go through every corner of my business, from sales to HR to ops, and work to eliminate anything that's still being done the old-fashioned way. There's money to be made and saved in the behind-the-scenes product or process. In my company, the rule is learn AI or move on. We even built a tool that helps us learn and deploy in all of our businesses AI better. And actually, I'll give it to you guys for free. It's called Top Prompt. You can go to topprompt.ai or you can click below. The cool thing is, if you tell this what to do, it'll give you the perfect prompt and the perfect tool for whatever you're trying to build. I think, like Rockefeller, we have to realize that you should never sleep on how much something can help you move faster and unlock key leverage in a time in which the entire market is moving. And it kind of goes beyond AI. The framework is, when you look at any business or industry, ask yourself 3 questions. Where does the real cost sit? For Rockefeller, it wasn't refining, it was shipping. Who controls that choke point? Every industry has one. The thing everyone else depends on but nobody owns. Find it. What do you think that is in AI? Oh, it's data storage, data centers, it's chips. It's not actually the LLMs. It's figuring out, where do we store all this data? How do we move it faster? Those are the choke points. So what would happen if you own that instead? If it gives you upside, that's where to go. Most people never ask these questions. They're busy building AI apps right now. They're busy working on the main business. But the moment you start asking deeper questions, you stop seeing industries the way everyone else does. Rockefeller didn't just analyze his own businesses. He looked at the big picture and the industry as a whole, and what he found there made him the richest man who has ever lived. Chapter 4, the Cleveland Massacre. February 1872, Rockefeller's 32. He's the owner of the largest refinery in Cleveland. He has a lock on the best transportation rates in the region, and he has credit. Serious credit. That's another way to say a lot of money. So much so that none of his competitors can match. And he decides to make a list of every refiner in Cleveland. Starting with the biggest, he invites the owner to his office, opens his book, and shows the numbers. His competitors are stunned. Rockefeller is operating more efficiently than they ever imagined. It seems impossible. They could never catch up. But if you think Rockefeller is showing off, you'd be wrong. He's negotiating. Once they understand how far behind they are from his business ops, he makes his offer. Sell to me, take cash, or take stock in Standard Oil, his company, your choice. Some said they weren't afraid. One refiner told him he wasn't scared of the fight, and Rockefeller looked him in the eye and said, "You may not be afraid to have your hand cut off, but your body will still suffer." What a line! Because for those who refused, the pressure, it didn't come quietly, it came fast. Like banks that had been friendly stopped lending. Railroads stopped offering competitive rates. Rockefeller could undercut their prices and sustain losses they could never absorb. So this is how Rockefeller swallowed 23 companies in 28 days. 18 owners took cash. 5 took stock in Standard Oil. And to those 5, Rockefeller gave them one piece of advice. Sell the shirt off your back, but hold on to that stock. The 5 who listened became some of the wealthiest families in America. The lesson here for me is one of Rockefeller's most powerful tactics: honesty, transparency, and data. He opened his books. So competitors walked in expecting a verbal negotiation, some sparring, and instead he showed them how he operated. And what they saw made it clear why he was an industry leader. He had margins they couldn't touch, costs they couldn't match. Most people argue based on opinions and feelings, and sometimes that works. But the way to win in negotiations is to argue from things that are hard to argue back on. Numbers, data, facts. Opinions, you could debate that. Numbers, that forces a decision. So Rockefeller was louder and more aggressive than everybody else. But he also knew once he showed people the numbers, there was nothing left to argue. The reality will be too big to ignore, and it forced all of his competitors' hands. So whether you're asking for a raise, closing a deal, trying to change someone's mind, stop trying to persuade with emotions. Start revealing instead of negotiating. Find the numbers that actually lead to the truth. So undeniable that there's nothing to negotiate. Chapter 5, the monopoly and the mask. So it's 1879. Standard Oil controls 90% of American oil refining. Rockefeller is a shocking 39 years old, and arguably the most powerful businessman on the planet. But when you look closer at who this man actually is, the picture gets weird. From his very first paycheck, $3.50 a week, he gives 10% to his church. He doesn't drink, he never smokes, he never gambles. He goes to church twice every Sunday, his whole life. Despite being the wealthiest man in the world, he raises his children on hand-me-down clothes and carries a bag of dimes to hand out to strangers wherever he goes. Why? This is the part that never makes it to the history books. His father was a traveling con artist. He posed as a deaf-mute peddler selling miracle cures across rural America. He ran 2 separate families in secret, and he disappeared for months at a time. Rockefeller couldn't rely on anybody and had no dependability. He grows up watching that chaos and decides early he's going to be the opposite. Every habit and every routine he has, he builds in direct reaction to a childhood where nothing could be counted on. So his father taught him discipline the only way an undisciplined man can, by showing him exactly what it costs to live without it. The lesson here is that business ownership is chaotic. Employees quit, deals collapse, markets turn, competitors undercut you. Most of it is completely outside your control. So most great operators, they don't leave the other stuff to chance. They obsess over controlling the things you can control. What are those? What are you doing when you wake up? What are your routines? What standards do you hold? The way you end a negotiation, the things you say yes to and the things you never touch. Rockefeller couldn't control the oil market, but he could control himself. And over a long enough timeline, the person with the most discipline, they usually win. So look at your own life right now. Like, what time do you wake up? What do you let into your morning? What decisions do you make on autopilot that you've never actually examined? I think most people say that they would do anything to get what they want out of life, but they won't even wake up an hour earlier. So the question for you is discipline a personality, or is it something that you choose every once in a while? Because it's really a competitive advantage, and the best time to build it is before you need it. Chapter 6, the reinvention. Rockefeller's 58 years old now. His hair it's gone from stress. His body is actually breaking down from relentless pressure. And he walks away. He steps back from daily management of Standard Oil. He starts playing golf, spends time with his grandkids, hands the operation to the people who he's built and trained. Then in 1911, the Supreme Court orders Standard Oil broken into 34 separate companies. The ruling is meant to destroy his monopoly, to punish him, to dismantle what he built. It actually makes him richer. The separate companies, unshackled from each other, are actually worth more on the open market than Standard Oil had been as a unified entity. So like between 1911 and 1913, by doing literally nothing, Rockefeller's net worth nearly doubles. He spends the rest of his life giving it away. $540 million, roughly $15 billion in today's dollar. That's like the Rockefeller Foundation, the University of Chicago, medical research that would eventually help eradicate hookworm and yellow fever, which now we don't think of much because of this guy, but used to kill a lot of people. He dies in 1937, 2 months before his 98th birthday. The lesson? Rockefeller stepped away from daily operations when he was still one of the most powerful businessmen alive. And that kind of seems strange until you understand a distinction most entrepreneurs never make. Operators build businesses, owners build freedom. The goal was to build something that didn't need him. And this applies whether you own a business or not. The employee who documents their process becomes promotable. The freelancer who builds the system that stops trading time for money. The manager who develops their team stops being the bottleneck and starts being the multiplier. In every case, making yourself replaceable in your current role is what creates room to grow into the next one. So ask yourself, what happens if you disappear for a month? That answer tells you everything about what you've built. Standard Oil didn't actually need Rockefeller in the office. When he stepped back, the thing didn't shrink, it kept growing. So build the system, get out of its way. And by the way, if you need help on that, that's exactly what we do at the Growth Boardroom. If you run a business that does over $1 million in revenue a year, we want to help you scale to the next level of the game. Get to your next 8 and 9-figure business. And if that's you, I want you to apply at the link below. Talk to one of my advisory team members about how we help people scale out of their business. Chapter 7, the real playbook. Most people think Rockefeller built one massive company. He didn't. He actually built a machine that made buying the next company easier than the last. First refinery sucked, it was hard. The 10th refinery, easier. The 20th, inevitable. Every acquisition made the next one simpler because he already had the credit relationships, stronger deal flow, operators who knew how to run a business inside the system he'd built. So when you build a system that builds the holding company, you develop real relationships with the things that will make your business grow faster. And eventually the deals start finding you. Rockefeller built an engine that kept buying oil companies. That was his end game. Here's the thing about Rockefeller that I think gets lost in the monopoly story. He became the richest man in history in an industry nobody thought was glamorous. Oil refining, especially back then, was disgusting. It was dirty and smelly and blue collar and low brown. Fancy people didn't do oil refinery, actually. No serious member of the elite was taking part of that. Kind of like today, car washes, plumbing companies, laundromats. The industries, they don't make headlines, but they make money, recession after recession. They're not exciting. Sometimes the path to making extraordinary wealth isn't doing something extraordinary. It's doing something essential that everybody needs nonstop. The real secret there is to doing it for longer than everybody else was willing to. That was Rockefeller's real secret, I think. And it's still available to anyone paying attention. Like, tell me in the comments, what's the first business you'd buy? And I hope it's not a sexy one, because I think the next generation of billionaires will be built in the boring. And if you want the full framework for how to actually do it, the deal structures, the due diligence, the financing, watch this video next. By the way, guys, we've never done this type of video before. I'm obsessed with Rockefeller. I think this story is so fascinating. Tell me in the comments if you are too, and if you want us to do more videos exactly like this one.
There's no such thing as a healthy sedentary person. Oof. This is a non-negotiable. It's a one core principle that they must get down is you have to be physically active.
What are the top
3 things that you recommend for high performers?
Very easy. Number 1,
She is a physician. She's a New York Times bestselling author.
She's an expert in geriatrics, in nutrition, in health, and longevity.
Dr. Gabrielle Lyons.
the more overweight you are, the wider your waistline, the lower the brain volume.
Fatter you are, dumber you are?
You heard it here, folks.
Okay, just make sure I'm tracking.
The average American is eating around 300 grams or so of carbs a day. The recommendation is 130 grams.
Wait, what?
Anything above that, you have to earn through exercise. You cannot wait for motivation. It's never going to come. The fact of me not taking that action, number 1, it compounds. Number 2, you're going to worry about it all day. And number 3, you are slowly actually getting more unwell the less that you do. The biology doesn't like chaos. If you are going to intermittent fast, great, but stick to those feeding windows. If it's 8 to 9 hours, then stick to that.
If you want to be the guaranteed unhealthiest person you can be, what do you do? Inverse thinking.
Perfect.
This episode, The Body Reset, all about how you should eat, exercise for fat loss and health. We're going to nail it all today in as little time as possible with the one expert I trust more than anybody else, Dr. Gabrielle Lyons. If you feel like your brain isn't functioning at the level that you want it to function at, or if you feel like right now in your life, your health overall isn't at the tippy tappy, don't worry, you can see my doctor. Gabrielle Lyons is going to break it down for us live. Let's get into it with my friend and trusted confidant who now becomes your doctor too. On the Big Deal podcast, I'm Codie Sanchez. Why should someone who just scrolled to this and is listening, why should they stay here? What are we going to give them from listening to this episode?
Any entrepreneur, anyone interested in business or doing well in life cannot outpace their biology. And if you want to do well or achieve or whatever it is that drives you, you must be healthy. It's how to eat, how to move, how to think, how to recover, because we all know that there's a huge delta between information and action. It's exactly what to do.
Yeah, I need that. I don't actually want to guess. I want to be bossed around when it comes to health.
I got you covered.
I know you do. You're
and
always
recipes.
bossing me around.
Here's what to eat.
Yeah. Yeah, because you've had 2 kids,
Yes.
you work
And a man-child.
nonstop,
That's right.
and a very large former Navy SEAL man-child.
I know.
This is how we became buddies. And yet you're jacked and healthy and have a huge business. So actually, let's start here. For entrepreneurs, it's not just about being healthy and having a six-pack. There's a lot that your studies have shown that I've seen that say there's ties between exercise and brain health. What do the studies tell us about exercise and brain health?
Well, first of all, exercise, because you are focusing on muscle. And for those listening, muscle is the organ of longevity. It is an organ system that we have taken for granted forever, meaning the thyroid is also an organ system we have no control over. Skeletal muscle is the only organ system we have voluntary control over. So when we choose to engage in cardiovascular exercise or resistance training, we become smarter humans. And we also, depending on the way in which we train, can think faster.
What is the right way to train in order to think faster?
Train fast.
And does that mean like I'm doing sprints?
Yeah, some kind of sprint interval. So here is how I think about training. First of all, here's how I think about muscle. Muscle is the sink for metabolism. For the entrepreneur, they are worried about brain function. They're worried about Alzheimer's. And the healthier your brain is, the less likely you are going to get Alzheimer's, because Alzheimer's is type 3 diabetes of the brain. If you want to be a good entrepreneur, then you have to have the physical skills in place, which is resistance training, which is a physical skill, to build and maintain muscle. It doesn't get easier. You have to do some kind of cardiovascular activity, again, for brain function, for healthy vasculature. And it's not much more complex than that. We could talk about mobility. We could talk about all these other things. But if someone is listening to the podcast or watching, the chances are extremely high that they're not training, because 74% of Americans are not meeting the baseline recommendation
Oof.
of 150 minutes and 2 days a week of resistance training.
So in order to hit what you have to hit to have a smarter brain, not get Alzheimer's, perform, you have to do what?
3 days a week of resistance training, at least one session of high intensity interval training, or somehow meet that 150 minutes. But if I were to choose the perfect plan for you, it would be step 1, 3 days a week of resistance training. Step 2, add in 1 day a week or 2, but we can just say 1, of high intensity interval training, 20 minutes. A minute on, a minute off. Step 3, move more. If you are taking calls, walk. If you are yelling at your kids, which I'm just talking from a friend's perspective, then walk. Whatever it is that you are doing that you have the opportunity to be sedentary, move. And that will cover your physical needs. You will also have a less likely chances of dying from nearly all-cause mortality, from anything, because you're active.
That's wild. Yeah, I mean, you're so good at this. Like, I see you all the time. Whenever I FaceTime you, you're lifting your 2 children all around who are
With
adorable.
1 finger, just like 1 finger.
No, they're on these sleds, like, and you're pushing them, and then you guys are doing push-ups. It's pretty incredible how you have integrated workouts into your life with your kids. I really struggle with that. You know this because
Do you?
Yeah, I suck. I can't even get the 10,000 steps a day in. Gabrielle, help me. How do I get
Come
my
on, is this
10,000
true? So
steps?
this is a non-negotiable. Because there's no such thing as a healthy sedentary person.
Oof.
And also muscle, we want it to look like a fillet. One of the main problems that happens is when we are sedentary, our muscle transitions from looking like a fillet to a Wagyu steak.
Which is more expensive, but not great. in
And
this
also
instance.
not very
Fatty.
strong.
Yeah.
Also, it affects, for guys, erections. The more healthy muscle, and we just published this paper, and the paper demonstrates that the more healthy muscle mass you have, the greater sexual function you have.
Wow. So does that just mean more erections or longer erections?
More healthy, harder erections. So now that we've gotten the attention of every single man in the world, let me tell you this. By the age of 40% of men will have erectile dysfunction.
Whoa.
By the age of 50% of men will suffer from erectile dysfunction.
And the cure to it is lift heavy.
One cure to it is lift and get your cardiovascular activity, because that's the plumbing.
So this isn't like the little blue pill, because I think the doctors get it wrong. They're like, you'll have an erection forever. All the wives are like, please, dear God, no. Can you please?
This has been going on over 24 hours. That's a medical emergency.
Like, if it's more than 5 minutes, I'm out. But actually what this does instead, it's not duration. It's like, when you want one, it'll come. It'll be there for the period in which you want it, as opposed to some sort of monster penis.
Yeah, we don't want that. And by the way, if you also do not use your genitalia, if you do not use your penis, you will lose it.
What does
Men,
that mean?
this is crazy, but you can lose a centimeter
From just not
from
getting...
your penis if you are not getting erection and you are not having sex over a period of time, if you're not getting blood flow to that muscle, it is a use it or lose it muscle.
Whoa. That is wild.
And
that's a clip.
You're welcome. But anyway, I say all of this because as an entrepreneur, I'm one myself, you have to be very focused. Mm-hmm. And the more discerning you are and the less distracted you are, you can take the next right step. There are only a handful of things that really distract people. Again, I've been taking care of entrepreneurs for more than 15 years. Their health becomes very distracting. And they will say, I don't have time for exercise. And then I will say, well, how are you going to have time for sickness?
Yeah.
And so one core principle that they must get down is you have to be physically active.
So what hacks do you have for like busy people who have too much going on, who have all the excuses in the world like me? How do we make sure that we prioritize exercise?
It has to be non-negotiable. It has to be built into your calendar. I cannot believe that you are not getting your 10,000 steps. I think that we have to have a major discussion.
We're going to have an intervention.
Yeah, we need an intervention.
Okay, fine.
So number one, you cannot wait for motivation. It's never going to come. Some people, like our husbands, love to train. The rest of the world, I'm already bitching about my workout on Wednesday starting Tuesday night. But I'm still going to do it because the fact of me not taking that action, number one, it compounds. Number two, you're going to worry about it all day. And number three, you are slowly, it's not the opposite of physical activity. You're actually getting more unwell the less that you do.
What about the saying that people say lately where it's like, if you had to choose between 10,000 steps a day or 10 minutes of intense exercise, it would be better to do 10 minutes or like 10 minutes of squats instead of 10,000 steps. What's the truth between the two?
So for me, I would say that the more intense, the better. And I can equate this to if you're doing work. You would rather have 10 minutes of excellent work than a day of, I don't know what I accomplished.
That's a good point. Unless you're my employee, then we want better 10 minutes. You're like, I'm done. David's like, done for the day. I heard it first here.
But it's a really small hack, and entrepreneurs and business owners can not afford to train, because one of the biggest things that take people out is being sick. It's extremely easy to be well.
Well, also, I mean, I kind of feel better about that because 10,000 steps actually takes a long time at my rate of stepping, apparently. That's like an hour.
Is that true?
Yeah. I mean, it's like what, 4 miles or something like that, 10,000 steps, which means that I need an hour walking plus like an hour for my lifting. Plus, I'm working. Plus my husband likes to hang out way too much. You know this. It's the same thing
My
with
kids
yours.
are about to be here. It's going to be.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah.
Just wait till the cameras start crashing. This is like.
Hey, you said to bring them, but you couldn't easily, if I were to give you just a few hacks, you can get a treadmill dust.
Yeah.
You can do that.
And they're like $100 on Amazon. So if you have very little money, very little time, what are the top 3 things that you recommend for high performers?
Very easy. Number 1, get yourself a treadmill desk. Number 2, get either a kettlebell or some kind of resistance band. And number 3, have your first meal of the day, let's just call it a protein shake, set and ready to go.
That's good.
So easy.
I don't do any of those things.
Dude,
How
I
are
know
we
your
best
doctor.
buds?
How is this possible?
I know. I'm changing it up. I'm on it. Somebody write this down. Okay. But it's kind of helpful because I think in my brain, I built this thing up, and I think a lot of people listening are probably the same. You're like, I hear from Andrew Huberman, I got a 47-step routine, and then I got cold plunge, and then I got ice baths, and then I got da. And at some point, I'm like, I can't wear my Lululemon leggings because I'm going to get cancer.
You're not going to be, no, you're going to be okay with that.
I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
So really at the end of the day, there's fewer, better things that we can do that drive most of the performance.
Humans love novelty. And novelty is one of the biggest distractions for health. We already have great innovations. It's kind of like the phone. We had the flip phone, we had the rotary phone, then we had the flip phone, then there was like the 1980s juggernaut of a phone, and now we have the iPhone. Do we really need another phone? No, we need to upgrade our software. Humans love novelty. We like the smoking diet and the phentermine diet and the cabbage soup diet. But our biology, we have a drive to eat a certain way. And once we put those foundational pieces in place, then we can chase less novelty. So, for example, anchoring your day in a high quality protein, 1 shake. It affects brain function. You're going to be much less likely to eat any of the snacks in your fucking snack room, which is like chips, and I don't even know who designed that.
We need to have you go through that.
But the reality is you augment your willpower. So right now, people think they have to depend on their own willpower. But if you prioritize your diet well, then you're not chasing these ebbs and flows of blood sugar. Something very simple, practical, and tactical is 30 grams of protein first thing in the morning.
What are examples of fast ways to get protein in the morning? If you had 5 options, what are they?
Protein shake. It could be a whey protein shake. If you don't like whey, it could be a rice pea blend. Greek yogurt, not hard. 6 eggs or a handful of eggs. Some people like steak and eggs. You can have a chicken patty. You can have, some people eat salmon for breakfast. There's a million different ways to do it.
Okay. All right. So we nail this in the morning. What other high performance daily routines do you have that we can steal?
Yep. Get outside first thing in the morning. Good sleep starts in the morning. Also, consistent sleep-wake times. If you are someone who has the tendency to stay up late, don't. Decide that your bedtime is going to be 10. You go to bed every night at 10. And you wake up at the same time.
I do that. I'm really good at that.
You are?
Yeah. I go to bed at 10 every night.
Okay. Do you feel
got
better?
one. Yeah, I sleep like a little baby.
Yes, you do. I can vouch for that.
Yeah, because you
All
always
of a sudden,
try.
I was reading you, and we were in DC, and I was reading you. I was so excited about this idea of amino acids and how, whatever, it was the wartime diet. And I look over and you're asleep.
Because it's the most, but she goes, I have a fascinating study I want to read you. It's like 12 o'clock at night because you are the Energizer Bunny. It's weird how much energy you have,
A lot of
actually.
caffeine, actually.
And you read me the world's most boring study, which is what you like to read for fun, which is also weird.
Also, you're a hater, but yes, it's true. And if you get outside in the morning and you get sunlight in your eyes, no glasses, no contacts, just get out there. You're anchoring. We work in a 24-hour circadian rhythm. We're mammals. That's what we do. If you anchor your morning, it sets up your night. So you are releasing melatonin, which helps with the sleep drive. It really sets you up for success because brain function can be improved with proper sleep. Because we do not think about it. When you have sleep deprivation, you are more likely to make mistakes. Not to mention your muscle protein synthesis, which is a big fancy word for, it's kind of a proxy for muscle health, is suppressed. We don't want that.
No. So what does it look like when you get up in the morning?
I have 2 kids.
It's chaos.
That's enough. Yeah.
But theoretically, you get up and you walk your little
Kids outside. We go right outside.
immediately outside.
Yes, because it's important for them.
Okay.
Well, it's not entirely
Do you take
true.
your coffee
I
with
do.
you?
I was just about to say that's not entirely true.
Okay. You get up, you make a coffee, you go outside
With the kids.
with the kids.
Then we hang out.
Do you ever just pull up TikTok or Instagram and scroll
No.
immediately in bed? Never.
No. Wow. No.
Okay, we need to be like, I need a bracelet that says, what would Gabrielle Lyon do? And do the opposite of what would Cody do in the morning?
It would be create purposeful friction. To me, that's all distraction.
Yeah.
And the more clear we are about the things that are important, the less we are going to make bad choices.
What do you mean by create purposeful friction? What does that look like?
Again, human beings, we're so predictable. And in order to be able to mitigate those highs and lows, which, early on, maybe in your entrepreneurial career, you probably allowed yourself to get really hyped up. Is that true?
Yeah.
And following that hyped experience, did you fall equally as low?
Sure. Yeah.
But you did it probably for, I don't know, a handful of years. But at that peak of you amping yourself up, doing push-ups, listening to loud music before you got on stage or before you closed a big deal, most entrepreneurs will tell me that they feel kind of depressed the next day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they are chasing these highs and these lows. At the peak and the trough, meaning at the peak as high as you go and as low as you go, those are both vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities as a doctor who cares for these people from health perspectives. That is the moment where you go off your diet plan. You just feel like you need more sugar, or I don't know, they buy a car or they find a girlfriend, whatever it is, whatever their vice is, they'll go towards that. Similarly, when they are low, they are much less likely to make good physical choices. They are not going to, after a big event, go exercise. But if they were to do those things, then we don't have to spend 4 months trying to get you back on track. But it's predictable. So how do we build up our kind of vulnerability body armor? We don't do it at the big event. We do it before. So I'm going to give you 3 things that you can do. Number 1, you create purposeful restriction, meaning I love caffeine, I love loud music, and then I'll go work out. But all of that helps with dopamine release. So it fuels to that drive of wanting more. I flip a coin. Heads, I get it. Tails, I don't.
Interesting.
Annoying.
Yeah, very annoying.
But can you imagine after the 5th time of doing that, you're way less annoyed. And you can do it in any area of your life of something that you desire. For example, Starbucks. Flip a coin. Heads, you get it. Tails, you don't. And I encourage people to try this because we are of the culture to just get. But it doesn't help us when we need to mitigate those highs and lows.
That's great. So you kind of take the offers off the table. It's like, it's not up to you. It's up to this coin flip.
That's right.
And then I just keep my promise to myself. I like that. You talk a lot about sleep. I think this is super important. I was reading a article the other day that we have a sleep epidemic in tandem with what you talk about often, which is a health epidemic. Like people are sleeping less, their sleep quality is worse than ever. If somebody's listening to this right now and saying, I literally cannot sleep, I'm suffering from it, what else do you do? What do you tell somebody to do who's suffering from sleep?
Yeah, a lot of people are not sleeping well. And to be frank, I don't actually love sleeping, but you have to do it. Here's a handful of things. So number 1 is wake up at the same time and go to bed at the same time. Limit overhead lights and a lot of stimulation. Number 2, it's not great to have these huge meals before bed, but one of the things that we've seen in our clinical practice is people get hypoglycemic before, or actually in the middle of the night. So about 4 hours after people fall asleep, we see that they oftentimes get reactive hypoglycemia. which is just a big word for low blood sugar, and it wakes them up. So having a mixed meal, maybe a handful of carbohydrates and a handful of protein, you don't need to overcomplicate it. Handful of both could be yogurt and some fruit. And then you go to bed, you're much less likely to wake up with this reactive hypoglycemia.
Is that what most often happens with people who are sleeping? It's they wake up in the middle of the night, not that they have a hard time falling asleep?
They do.
Interesting.
And they could wake up from sleep apnea.
Mm-hmm.
If you have bigger than a 17.5-inch neck, you probably have sleep apnea.
No.
You do not. Everyone's checking their neck.
Okay.
If your partner snores, they probably have sleep apnea.
Yeah, I think Chris has sleep apnea.
Well, yeah, of course. Every team guy I've ever met has sleep apnea.
Yeah.
But, they kind of don't like when they go to bed wearing the mask and the earplugs and the eye mask, they look like they're ready for takeoff.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like instant birth control. But still, it's really important because the data shows. So when I was a fellow, so I did my fellowship in geriatrics and nutritional sciences at WashU. And one of the risk factors for Alzheimer's was very poor sleep over time and sleep apnea.
Interesting. So what do you do if you have sleep apnea?
You get tested and you get treated.
And that is not just mouth tape.
No. Oftentimes people need to lose weight. Some people, it can be positional. And some people just have the kind of sleep apnea that requires an intervention. And there's nothing wrong with it, but you have to get tested. And you can do at-home sleep tests. It's not a big deal. It's super easy.
Some of the biggest challenges in business don't come at the starting line. They come when you're ready to grow. Hiring an operator, expanding to a second location, upgrading your equipment. And yeah, those moments make for great stories later, but when you're in the thick of it, they're brutal. That's why SoFi built the small business loan marketplace to help owners like you scale without the stress. The SoFi small business loan marketplace is your one-stop shop to search and compare real financing options from trusted providers so you can scale faster. And there's no hit to your credit score for searching for financing. You could even get funds as soon as the same day as you're approved. The next generation of business owners aren't growing by draining their savings or juggling credit cards. They're growing smarter with financing that fits their business. If you're ready to grow, head to SoFi.com/Codie and see what's possible. And thanks to SoFi for sponsoring this episode.
I want to ask you a bunch of rapid fire questions, actually, that I've been wanting to ask you for a while. So this is for me mostly.
Yes, I wear deodorant.
Oh, you do?
I'm so sorry.
Is it organic though?
Nope. Yeah, it is.
It is, right?
Yeah,
is that true?
Sometimes it doubles as hand sanitizer, but yeah.
Oh my, actually, I know this about you. You've given this. Oh, share this hack. This is such a good hack.
Okay.
I was smelly one day.
Kids, don't try this at home. But if you have an organic hand sanitizer that is mostly alcohol, it also doubles as deodorant.
Yeah, which
now,
is
not
actually what you
mouthwash,
use.
but definitely deodorant because I've tried it.
Yeah, and you gave it to me.
Yeah,
and I didn't.
and it
I
worked.
thought it was actual deodorant. I used it for like a week straight
and there
because
you
you didn't
go.
tell me this. I trust you too much. Okay, so you do use deodorant, but you don't use non-organic ones because there is some data that shows that it's linked to cancer.
Well, there are a lot of environmental exposures, and I want to be very careful. There is the information overload. Everything is toxic. So there's kind of these two camps that everything is toxic. You have to eat organic. And then the other group that is organic's a waste of money. Don't worry about all this stuff. It's okay to have dyes. And I think the truth is often somewhere in the middle. But what we do know is that a lot of the stuff that we are using, it does contain a lot of chemicals. And this is true. It is probably the amount that we are using over a lifetime is probably not what we are using, say, a month at a time. For me and our household, we try to do as natural as possible.
Yeah, so you're not going to be sponsored by
Celsius, I'm waiting. But again,
I
so
was gonna say the
Celsius,
big deodorant companies.
so Celsius artificial sweeteners is another big, for example, hot topic. I don't think the data is very strong that most artificial sweeteners are negative to the brain or the human body.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So you actually, I mean, you do drink as much caffeine as like, I don't know, a 300-pound bodybuilder per day. So maybe the other question is, I saw a video the other day that I was like, whoa, this is a title. And it was, is caffeine killing us?
No.
No.
No. Some people do have a genetic SNP that they are more susceptible to the negative side effects of caffeine, but you will know if you if you are that person. I mean, you can always, of course, test for it. Happy to come to our clinic. We'll test you for it. But the reality is caffeine in a moderate dose is not going to be detrimental.
Yeah. What about, is caffeine bad for women when we're trying to get pregnant? I read another one saying coffee's bad for pregnant women. So you just want to steal all my joy.
I'm sorry. When I was pregnant, I did not go over 200 milligrams of caffeine.
What about before you were pregnant, like trying to get pregnant?
I'm not pregnant yet. Sign me up.
Yeah. Interesting. God, there's so many things. Okay, how about this one? Are Lululemon's making us infertile? Are Lululemon leggings making us infertile?
If I were to put and rank the hierarchy of what is causing infertility, and let's say what is the number one cause of female infertility? For young women, it's polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is also known as PCOS. There are two types of PCOS. One comes from the brain and the other is metabolic. The other being metabolic, guess where the biggest lever that we can pull for improving our chances of fertility if you are someone who has PCOS is?
Muscle. I'm just gonna
Exercise.
guess. Really?
And diet.
Wait, so you were saying if you have PCOS right now, you should be lifting and following a strength regime?
Yes.
I have never heard a doctor say that before.
And I interviewed on my podcast one of the world leading experts in PCOS. Her name is Dr. Melanie Cree. She is an MD PhD. And she did, if there are 10 studies on Ozempic or GLP-1s and fertility, she's done 2 of them. And I asked her, she was, we were in a podcast, and I said, okay, so what % body fat is it that allows someone to get pregnant, or the ones that are going to really suffer on an ongoing basis? And she looked at me and she's like, Gabrielle, it has nothing to do with body fat percentage. It has everything to do with intermuscular adipose tissue. To break that down, it's how much fat is actually stored in your muscle. And that comes from insulin resistance, which in part of that is being sedentary. I mean, there are genetic risks for PCOS, but what we do know is that exercise and a good diet will often, I'm being very careful about how I'm saying this, will improve people's likelihood of conceiving.
Why is it that doctors by and large don't tell us things like that?
It's a lot to ask for someone to be trained at an expert level in multiple domains. In order to become a physician, you're already going through 4 years of undergrad, 4 years of medical school, then training, and then a fellowship. To also ask that person to be an expert at nutrition is a lot.
How many studies do you have to read to go, probably better that you work out?
Not that many. Not that many.
So is that really an excuse for doctors to not use it? Or is it like a liability if they say it? I don't get it.
No, but I will say and I'm just speaking from my own perspective, I think for physicians, because there is so much noise out there, I don't think that they like to step into that noisy realm. And what do I mean by this? I'll give you an example. So in order to be a board certified physician, you still have to study. It doesn't just go away once you graduate and start practicing. And many doctors would say, don't eat red meat and reduce your dietary cholesterol. But they were misinformed because dietary cholesterol recommendations were taken out of the dietary guidelines in 2015. Therefore, the information of don't eat eggs or don't eat red meat because it's bad for your cholesterol, cholesterol is not even part of the guidelines right now.
Wow. What changed?
I think that the scientists determined that it wasn't relevant, that dietary cholesterol had very little impact on blood level cholesterol.
Dude, I feel like doctors need a beeper or something. Can they give them the updates? Is there some nationwide system where when new data comes out, they say, well, all doctors should know this, or there's not really a way?
That's a really good point. There is, but it's per specialty. And again, nutrition is challenging because it's something that everybody does. Eat. Becomes very difficult to get through the noise.
Yeah. The tough part is there's the other side of the coin too, right? Which is we have all these people online giving all of this advice who are definitely not a doctor, never read a study before or read one on the side, don't really understand how to analyze peer-reviewed studies, and are also sharing a lot of information like if you eat seed oils, you about to die. And so it can kind of become—
Which we know that that's not true.
That's so controversial too, because I feel like if we had— let's say I had Paul Saladino here, you here, Huberman here, and Alex Clark, there'd be a war.
But here's what I would say. I would say, let's call in the people that have done these studies and let's talk to them. So for example, Dr. Kevin Mackey, he was and he still might be the president of the Lipid Association. This guy's a career scientist. And I was like, Kevin, what's the deal? And he said, the evidence doesn't support that seed oils are causing the derangement that people are saying.
What about when they say that's because the studies haven't been around long enough, or the, big pharma and the food industry are the ones that pay for it? So
people will always look to something.
But that's not what you're seeing in the data. You're saying these
No.
studies actually seem reasonable. We have enough data. We're
Yes.
analyzing it in real time.
And the good studies will also talk about the limitations. And we also know that whole foods are a great choice. And if we think about that, then we can become less hyper-focused on these little things. So the issue isn't food dyes. The issue isn't seed oils. The bigger issue is, how do we feed for human health? All these other things are distractions.
Then why, when I go to Europe, can I eat all the bread and all the food and I lose weight?
You're probably walking more than 10,000 steps.
It's probably about 2,000 here, about 12,000 there.
And also you're probably eating from whole food sources. Maybe you're getting outside more. But the reality is, it's very difficult to hyper-focus on one thing. It would be like for the entrepreneur, the one problem in your business is just because of this. You have a really rude front desk person. And you're like, no, you guys are not taking care of your taxes. You don't have good lead gen. I can find 100 other reasons, but the foundation is your business is not set up well. The same is for nutrition.
Yeah. Okay, what about, I heard a study the other day that said loneliness causes dementia.
We are, and I actually saw that study, so we are social creatures. And I don't know if it's loneliness. I mean, I think that that's probably subjective and they probably use survey data, but we do know that not being in relationships and having relationships around you is a risk factor for depression and anxiety and dementia.
And so what's the solve for that?
Hang out more.
I like that.
But
Come
not
over.
necessarily. It's interesting. So when I say hang out more, and I haven't seen this data, but we're not talking about social media hangout, having real relationships with real people that you can count on. Because AI is coming in and take over. And people are creating relationships with AI bots. And it is very disruptive for the human connection.
What does the data tell us about AI relationships or parasocial relationships versus in-person relationships? Like, does one supplement the other? If I'm talking to my AI all day, if I'm on Instagram all day, and I feel like I'm engaging with people, does that actually feel like engagement in my body?
It's not the same, but there is data to suggest that you do have that same feeling, but it is it is not the same. And I think we're also going to start to see more of that data as well.
So like for our health factor, it doesn't make me healthier and less lonely to engage online, but it does make me healthier to engage in person.
Yes. And I can't say for sure. Again, I have to be very clear about, doctors and scientists, we have to be very careful about what we're saying. For some people, could it be better? Yes, but I think that it will always be better if you are engaging in person, because we have nonverbal cues.
Yeah.
And we are somewhat of a connected nervous system. Our eyes connect. I mean, this is how we communicate. It's not just verbal communication. You cannot do that with a robot.
Yeah. Well, and then obviously, aren't there a lot of studies out there about physical touch too,
Yes.
and how important that is?
Yes.
And so if we're completely replacing physical touch, I imagine that can't be great. I mean, I saw it with my grandparents, for instance. One side of the family had my grandma super engaged. Like, we stayed in touch with her. She still had relationships. She still went out in the world during COVID. The other side, they were super quarantined. Nobody was around them. They never left their house. They were really antisocial, sort of like mandated. And one side, I mean, it was wild. My grandma is older. She's like asking me about ChatGPT and AI now. She's so with it. She's 100 years old. The other two, I mean, we lost them the last 5 years. Complete dementia, like lack of idea about where they are, not able to really use their own faculties at all anymore. And of course, this is all qualitative, not quantitative. But it was hard actually watching it and seeing them completely decline almost the second that they stopped having interaction. And I personally was like, I'd rather die from COVID than like slowly decline in dementia because I'm by myself.
Yeah, it's really tough. And there are other factors that we know. So for example, physical touch releases oxytocin. And oxytocin is what we think of as that bonding hormone. If you are sitting in a chair and have the massager chair, you don't release the same amount of oxytocin. And there are biological and physiological differences when you are engaging with human connection.
So if they're not getting any of that, they're not having oxytocin release. And what does oxytocin release do? Is that good for your brain, essentially?
It is good for your brain. It's good for your mood.
Yeah.
It's, think about it. Women release oxytocin when they have a baby, when they have sex, or when they orgasm.
Good clarifier.
You can also take oxytocin intranasally, which you can.
Wait, what?
Yeah, for mood, for milk letdown. Men and women can take it.
Like you snuff oxytocin up your nose with like a sprayer?
Yeah. Some people take allergy spray.
I love that you go, yeah, totally. Aren't you doing it too, Cody?
Yeah, I've got some in my purse, as a matter of fact. But the reality is what we are talking about is what are we going to do with the society that we live in now? How do we reorient ourselves to just a healthy lifestyle, which again starts with muscle, training, protein. It's not that complicated, but also good relationships, especially in the wake of this increase in AI online community. And again, if people want to perform at their best, then the ways to do that, I think, are very clear.
What do the studies tell us about being negative and being smarter or having a healthier brain? Like if you have negative thought patterns, are you more likely to shrink your brain size? Are you more likely to have a stronger brain? Does it matter if I'm negative or positive?
Well, I can't say that I have looked at those studies, but here's what I will tell you about the brain. That from a metabolic perspective, because this all ties in, the more overweight you are, the wider your waistline, the lower the brain volume. That's not good.
Fatter you are, dumber you are?
You heard it here, folks.
Okay, just make sure I'm tracking.
The other thing is that when you are training and when you are moving and doing cardiovascular activity, doing resistance training, you will have less atrophy. Your brain will be more robust in terms of preventing shrinkage. And this is what we see as women go through perimenopause, menopause. You do not want to be dealing with type 3 diabetes of the brain. As far as negative and positive, we know that sleep can help with brain function. That's the time the brain cleans itself. All very important. But again, a depressed brain, would someone say that that is a more unhealthy brain? I would say probably.
And is this something that we are seeing accelerate in our country? Like it seems like these days, more often than not, when I talk to my friends' grandparents, they have some version of dementia or Alzheimer's.
Yes.
So this is accelerating.
Mm-hmm.
And why do you think that is? Is this purely because of obesity and lack of muscle?
I think that it's not purely, but I think that is the main driver. Because think about all the activities that ride with healthy muscle. You're out, you're moving more, you're motivated. Is it the muscle itself? From a metabolic perspective, yes. Type 3 diabetes of the brain is insulin resistance of the brain. What your body does, your brain also does.
Like, do doctors recommend muscle, strength training?
Good doctors do.
Good doctors do.
Yeah.
But most of them today would recommend basically pills and crossword puzzles, right?
I think that we are starting to see a shift. For the last 50 so years, we've been focused on obesity as if this is the sole problem. And I would argue that obesity is just one problem. Alzheimer's, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, obesity, that these are all symptoms of unhealthy skeletal muscle. And if you are worried about all of these other things, including your performance at work, then you have to focus on the things that you actually have agency for, which is not actually weight loss. I cannot tell my body to lose 2 pounds, but I can tell my body, okay, you're going to go squat 120 pounds. So there are things that we have the option to control, and then the things that we don't.
By the way, I have a live event. I only do one a year. It's huge. How big? Really big. In Austin, Texas, just for people who want to make more money, buy businesses, build businesses. It's called Main Street Over Wall Street. So if you liked this episode, you're probably going to want to be there. There's only a couple hundred spots left. So click below. I want to shake your hand in person in Austin, Texas, or go to msows.com. MSOWS. We'll see you there. We've been blown away by how fast the show is growing. Like, getting to hang out with you every single week is so cool. But most of the people who tune in every week still haven't subscribed, which is crazy. It is the simplest way, though, to help us keep scaling. So I can't thank you enough for your support. Like, we would be nowhere without you guys. And I just want to jump back into my conversation, but I also want you to do it subscribed. Oh, and share it with a friend if you like this episode. I think it's better when you profit together, you know? I think we should try some hot takes on health. What's the dumbest diet trend you've seen people fall for?
There are two. Do I have to have been alive for them?
No.
But there was the lucky diet. People smoke to lose weight.
Wow, that's wild.
I just can't imagine how bad you would feel and how bad you would smell.
Very smelly.
I mean,
Okay,
they were
let's
definitely
subscribe.
single.
They were totally
So
single.
the lucky diet. There was also the amphetamine diet, the fen diet. Yeah, I don't think that was probably a good one. Cabbage soup diet.
Is that a real thing right now?
That is. And also the wine and egg diet.
Sounds great.
And this was 3 each meal. So for 3 meals, a glass of wine and 2 eggs.
Get out of town.
Disgusting. I mean, your breath is going to be terrible.
There's a lot of doubt. Oh, God, yeah. Could you imagine hanging out with that chick at a cocktail party? No, thanks. What about intermittent fasting? Is that a breakthrough, or is that just starving with better branding?
I love that. Intermittent fasting, if we were to quantify that, that's eating in an 8 to 9 hour window. We recommend that to our patients all the time. I do not recommend 24-hour fasts or longer because, again, it's difficult to hold on to muscle as it is. So if you reorient yourself to muscle, then fasting over 24 hours is, that's like the no-go zone. The Crazy Hot Matrix, it's the no-go zone.
Right, it's like Tiffany plus a hairdresser.
Exactly. No-go zone. But 8 to 9 hour feeding window can be great because the biology doesn't like chaos. And as we are thinking about how do we get better and more healthy so that we can produce more or just show up more fully, then less chaos is better. If you are going to intermittent fast, great. But stick to those feeding windows. If it's 8 to 9 hours, then stick to that.
So for a woman listening who's busy, got a lot going on, and has been told all these different things, she now knows she needs to strength train, probably. What is she eating? And what is she not doing? Like, what can we tell ourselves? Like, you can just take that off the list. Don't even worry about that right now.
Okay. Should we start with what she's not doing?
Yeah.
If she is very busy and not training, then she should not commit carbicide. And what is this? This is the body. So the average American is eating around 300 grams or so of carbs a day. The recommendation is 130 grams. Anything above that, you have to earn through exercise. So what she's not doing, if I could say, listen, lady, if you are not training and you are sedentary, do not eat a high carbohydrate diet, or you are essentially giving yourself an oral glucose tolerance test 3 times a day. We don't want that. Because as we have these metabolic dysfunctions, she then is at a greater risk for Alzheimer's and all these other diseases.
So that means no bread or less rice, less potatoes?
Unless you're going to train.
Okay.
But this is easy. Reduce your processed carbs.
Okay.
What she is doing is she's having around 100 grams of protein a day. Make it simple. 50 grams in that first meal, 50 grams in that last meal.
So that's like...
That's the minimum. She can do that.
Okay. Which would be like a shake and some eggs.
Great. Or a shake and a half.
Okay. Or a shake.
Or if she likes recipes, I have about 60 of them.
I like that. Where would we go to get the recipes?
This playbook.
Where let's be more specific.
Oh, yeah,
What
okay,
playbook
yeah.
and like...
Well, you can come over to my house, come under the tree. Just kidding. They can get it on Amazon. It's the Forever Strong playbook. It's the book that I wish I had. It has how to train, exactly what to do, exactly how to eat, exactly how to think about all these concepts and how to recover, which no one does, in a very concise manual.
Yeah. So you don't have to read because the Forever Strong book is incredible.
It's dense. You'll fall asleep. You fell asleep.
No, I read it and
You
I listened
kind
to it on audiobook.
You
Okay.
kind of fell asleep.
No,
Yeah.
I did not fall asleep. But if I could just get the playbook of only what I'm supposed to do, I'm on it.
Yeah.
Like, so, okay, we'll include the link below and then Forever Strong Playbook anywhere you go and buy it.
Here's my question.
Huh.
You see entrepreneurs all the time and business owners.
Uh-huh.
What is the disconnect between actually taking the action to get healthy? They will never outpace their biology, ever. Why, if you know this is going to make you a better business person,
Uh-huh.
and if we think that entrepreneurs are like these modern day warriors, because listen, they can suffer more than anyone else that I've ever seen. So take out the military. Like, look, you guys are in your own whole other category. But entrepreneurs can suffer more pain, more loss, are willing to take risks.
Yeah.
Yet you ask them to do 100 push-ups and they're like, I'm out.
I don't know. There's something wrong with our brains because I'm the same way. I think maybe it might be the difference between like acute and what is that called? Like continuous stress.
Chronic, yeah.
Chronic. Like we do really well, I think, with chronic stress and like chronic, we're like a bunch of marathoners. We're just over here running continuously in our business. But when you give us acute stress, which would be like acute physical stress, so like I got to go do burpees or work out with Gabrielle. It's like for some reason, it seems like it bothers a lot of entrepreneurs. So I think there's that. One, we're marathoners, we're not sprinters in many ways. And then I think the next thing is just habit stacking. We've habit stacked for so long our number one priority as being business related or money related that, you know, we just have to rewire our system to say, no, this actually makes me money here. But it's very hard to see the direct line correlation between my workout and my balance sheet. You know, that is somehow we just lose all causation between the two.
But what about getting that right meal in?
Yeah.
Because a lot of entrepreneurs, you call them right after lunch, 90 minutes later, they're napping under their desk.
Yeah.
But if you can just get that one meal right, you'll feel better by the next meal.
Yeah, it's totally rational. I don't know.
It is.
I think the other thing too is a lot of entrepreneurs, when you think about it, you have so much misery during the day. I think you have a great case in your head. Humans are incredible self-rationalizers, right? So I'm like, I worked so hard today. I worked hard all day today. I took all the issue. I've also got decision fatigue by the end of the day because I'm decision. At the end of the day, where's my glass of wine? I deserve it.
You deserve it.
You know? And so we have a negative narrative
We have
in
a
our
name for
head,
that. You know, we have
right?
a name for that.
What is the name?
That's called the midlife body starter kit right there. The I deserve it, the midlife body starter kit. I guarantee you another 40 pounds.
That is actually very true.
I mean,
yeah.
but yeah, I think that if we can, I believe that we can be a healthier, stronger, more robust society. Just like you think we can all be business owners.
Yeah.
So if we can connect the two, then you have a culture that is unstoppable. And that I think is what we're trying to get to.
Yeah. I mean, I think the other thing that's like like when I get in a flow and I'm going for a few weeks, I'm killing. Like my step count high. I'm in the gym. I got the trainer. You know,
You've got
I'm
the
on
weight vest on.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to our weight vest calls and talks? Like that just completely fell off the map.
Well, you kept doing it. I did not. And, you know, I think I have a very high tolerance for doing the business stuff, but I got a habit stack in order to do the physical thing. And so that's why I like listening to you because it's just it's a reminder. You're like the female David Goggins. You're like, listen, bitch, get moving.
No one is going to run that long. I run like 4 feet and I'm done. That's it.
Yeah, well, we do call you what do we call you? Ant Woman and the Tiny Tornado because half these videos of you, which I should put up here, that last one you sent me, you're throwing like it's a boulder over your shoulder, wasn't it? With you, she just goes. But I think sometimes like you can't be what you can't see. So when I see a mom like you who has 2 kids, who has a successful business, who is a doctor and still prioritizes health, it's like, what excuse do I got?
And it doesn't mean it's easy and it doesn't mean it's convenient.
No.
But I know that I am never going to be able to talk myself into it. But as long as I don't talk myself out of it, and I just have a commitment in place, then I don't have to rely on anything else. If we give them the 3 steps of, here, this is how much protein you're going to get. You're committed to it. This is what you're going to do for training. It's 3 days a week. You got this. We're going to put a standing treadmill desk because it's not just about building a financial legacy machine. You know, there's a saying that people will have 1 million problems until they have 1 health problem.
And it really does seem like We're getting cancer more than we ever have before. You know, I just saw today a woman that I really respect, whose name is Brittany Turner. She just announced that she has cancer. She's like a badass.
What kind of cancer?
It's a good question. I don't know. I saw it on the Instagrams, and super healthy from the outside looking. And so, you know, and then I have another girlfriend whose name is Bridget, who's been battling cancer for a year.
That's really sad.
And she's super young, you know, maybe 35, 38, something like that.
Yeah. And I also want to say that if someone is really young and they get cancer, typically there's a genetic cause. And then also cancer is not anybody's fault. And if you see a good physician, and there's a lot of discussion whether people should do this or not, but we do this in our clinic, and we do full body Prenovo or full body MRI scans. And also we've done it for you. We do blood tests for cancers, really just screening. At the very least, it's peace of mind. And so we do know that there are certain behaviors that increase people's risks of various cancers. Obesity is one of them. I'm pretty sure alcohol is a carcinogen. This is going to be really controversial, but a ton of sun exposure.
I thought that was a new thing. We don't do sunscreen anymore.
No, we do.
I was just telling my mom today.
Mom, yes, we do sunscreen. Or at least we do sun protection clothing.
Okay.
You know,
I'm into the clothing. I thought there was new things about how all the sunscreen has all the chemicals in it.
So pick one that is a mineral-based sunscreen.
Okay,
or
fine.
wear clothes.
All right.
But the sun is going to, at some point, cause DNA damage. And, you know, it's a risk factor for skin cancer.
Yeah, I was there more for like the aesthetic stuff. I don't want the wrinkles.
Yes. Well, me neither. But again, how do we think about preparing for the inevitable, which sucks, but aging is going to happen to everybody. It's inevitable. And these things are responsibilities.
How do we get your jawline? Are you
got to talk to my parents. You got to talk to my parents.
Son of a gun.
I literally had nothing to do with this.
That. If you have
know
those
what?
things.
If you chew enough gum and drink enough caffeine, come talk to me in here.
I'll be Gabrielle Lyon.
There you go.
The kids call that snatched jawline these days. You know that? That's what you have. Well,
that's good.
Must be nice. I don't have that. Okay, so I want to talk about alcohol really quick. How bad is alcohol for us, really?
It's not good.
Like, get rid of it. Don't drink it. No good.
I'm going to give you my personal opinion. Correct. I do not think alcohol. I think it is a toxin, period. And when we were examining people and we were saying, okay, so what is this person's risk factor for some kind of cognitive impairment? Alcohol was on the list. And people will say, well, a little bit of alcohol is okay. Okay, maybe, but it's kind of like, are you wanting to rationalize the fact that you are using it?
Yes.
Is it good? No, I personally don't think it is. Could you probably find some studies where X ounces a day is okay for you? Okay, fine. But if you want to pick a vice, just pick a different one.
What vice do you supplement it with at the end of the day?
Push-ups. I don't know.
Oh, God. You're such a psychopath.
Or how about this? If you want to have some carbohydrates, fine. Have your carbohydrates, then go for your walk.
Okay.
So leverage your body to balance out your choice.
Okay, I like that. That seems reasonable. Okay, let's end on, if you want to be the guaranteed unhealthiest person you can be, what do you do? Inverse thinking.
Perfect. Do not exercise. Do not move. Walk less than 3,000 steps. Number 2, absolutely, without a doubt, high calorie, high carb, processed food diet. And number 3, don't have any friends.
All right.
Guaranteed my recipe for misery.
And get hammered every night.
Yeah, perfect.
Now we're going to be the number one worst. Okay. I think the only thing that I want to end with is you have this new book coming out. You made it basically for me and people like me who won't read the whole book. What do we need to know about this book? Who is this book for? Why should we pick it up right now?
If you have a body, this book is for you. Period. It is how to think, how to move, how to eat, how to recover. It will tell you everything, and it is evidence-based. It is not a workbook, but it's a playbook. So you know how they've got like the playbook for life? This is the book that I wish that I had had.
So good. Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, thank you for being here. Thank you for being my bud. Thank you for bullying me.
No problem.
You will bully me into lifting heavy things, having friends.
I mean, it sucks, but
doing what I
gotta
say I'm going to do.
Right.
It's so lame. Okay, bye. If you are having sex with a woman for 5 to 6 minutes, 90% chance she's not orgasming, even if she sounds like she is. I am thrilled today to bring on Dr. Rena Malik.
She has a giant following online from being willing to talk about the taboo subjects in a way that is science and data backed. Are we having less sex than ever before?
Absolutely.
Are there any studies that show how often women actually fake an orgasm?
40% of women faked an orgasm. But men also fake orgasms.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Is the G-spot real? Really?
If you exercise 150 minutes a week, moderate intensity cardiovascular exercise, it's as good as taking a Viagra.
Wow. Women who watch porn and read those like kind of romance fantasy novels, it might increase our sex drive. Hi, I'm Codie Sanchez, and this is the Big Deal podcast. I want to talk about a thing we don't talk about enough, which is how to have sex, how to have better sex, how to have sex longer with a partner that you adore. And so this podcast is really, really a special one, I think. And I wouldn't bring just anybody on here to talk to you about this. There's lots of people who talk a lot on the internet about things like sex. When we come to a subject matter like this, I wanted to bring you the best. She has published 80 peer-reviewed publications and been an online content editor for the Journal of Urology. You're going to want to listen to this episode. And I can also promise you, you're probably going to want to send it to a few friends. The reason that I wanted to have you on today was not to talk about health broadly, but, I talked to our mutual friend and she was like, you have to talk to Dr. Malik about sex. And I was like, excuse me? I'm like in my spreadsheets right now. What are you talking about?
You're like, that's not what my audience comes to me for.
And she was like, there is an underpinning of society that obviously we have to procreate. And you're happier. There's some studies that show that you might be wealthier if you procreate and get married and have kids. And so I think it's important that we talk about sex. At the end of this little session, what I'm hoping people listening to today will get is maybe just having better sex, maybe having more sex, maybe not feeling bad asking the questions that they want to know about good or bad sex. Erectile dysfunction, not. And so at the end, I hope everybody's like, oh, this is amazing. Now I can go have a little bit better sex, a little bit more sex, because who doesn't want that?
Everybody wants that.
Yeah, except bad sex. Nobody wants more bad sex.
Right. And that's the thing. There's a lot of bad sex. There's a lot of bad sex because people are not educated, right? They're like, they see what's on porn or what's in even media, right? Like a guy penetrates a woman, within minutes they're orgasming, she's happy, he's happy, and it's like, oh, it's the best thing ever. It's like, that's not reality. When you look at first-time sex encounters, so let's say a man and a woman, 45% of the time the woman's going to orgasm, only 45%. If you look at a lesbian first encounter, 95% of the time they orgasm.
That's such incredible advertising for lesbians everywhere. 95% of the time.
Because they know the anatomy. Wow. It's so simple. They just know the anatomy.
Of course, it makes all the sense in the world.
Right.
They're
It's
also
not like
handy. They got all these extra pockets. Like, I just feel like being a lesbian that sounds great. I wish, turns out I'm into dudes.
Yeah, me
but
too.
good on you guys.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Yeah, it's not that they're, better. They just are more knowledgeable.
Absolutely.
Like, what are some of the biggest myths that even smart people believe about sex these days?
I think the biggest myth is that the bigger the penis, the better the sex. And yeah, sure. Some women have orgasms from cervical stimulation, but not a lot, right? So 85% of women need clitoral stimulation to climax, which doesn't require a large penis. And so it's like, it's more about, and people joke, oh, it's the motion in the ocean, whatever. Like, yeah, it is partially how you move and how you use your other body, right? Your mouth, your fingers, your toys, whatever you bring to the bedroom. Like, those things are just as important. And honestly, it's not even just about penetration. Like, it's about exploring, finding your erogenous zones, like you stimulating other areas and not just being so genital focused. Like, it's not all about the orgasm. It's also about the pleasure you feel while you're being intimate and the connection you have with the person. So I think that is the biggest myth, is like that penetration and size are everything.
That sounds right to me, that like 85% of women need clitoral stimulation.
Absolutely.
Are there any studies that show how often women actually fake an orgasm?
Yes, there are studies. And I think it's like as high as like 40% of women have faked an orgasm. But men also fake orgasms.
Whoa.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. So there's some men who have what's called delayed ejaculation. So they will take like 30 minutes or more to ejaculate. It's like 9%. It's not a small number, but they don't they don't complain about it, right? Because they're all trained to think this is a good thing. And so then they're just like, I need it to be over, so I'm going to fake it.
That almost, I think, would be worse as a man to fake it, right? Because as a woman, you kind of like shake it off.
Yeah.
But as a man, you have like a physical manifestation of the fact that you're not done, don't you?
Yes. I mean, like, I think they do, but they probably just, like, I'm guessing, and I don't think they've gotten into that detail in the research, but they probably like roll over, go to the bathroom, like, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I had a girlfriend who, God, we must have been 30 at the time. And she was married and she had a kid already, maybe 2. And she had told me she had never had an orgasm, 30 years old. And I was sort of blown away. And it took her a while to say that out loud. And then we were in a group, like a small, slightly bigger group of women. And there was another woman. And so then I was like, oh my God, how common is this?
12% of women have never had an orgasm. That's a lot of women, 12%. And so like, why is this? So a lot of times it's just because women aren't taught, right? So one, there's not enough time for arousal. So arousal for women takes longer than men. It takes about 25 minutes on average. And so if you think about sex, the average duration for sex is about 5 to 6 minutes. So for a man to ejaculate, when they've actually done something where they like took a stopwatch and timed it, like the partner puts on their stopwatch, times penetration to climax, and they've done it around the world, and it's around 5 to 6 minutes. And so if you think about that, if we're focused only on male pleasure and the whole thing is penetration, then within 5 minutes, they will climax and you will barely be aroused, right? Like you haven't even gotten there yet. And so if you're not focusing on mutual pleasure, then many women will not orgasm, right? So that's 1. 2 is, so there's not enough time. 2 is like, if it hurts. So like sometimes we just assume you should be well lubricated, everything should work. But sometimes people have reasons they don't lubricate well, genetics, they're on certain medications, and they still have sex with their partner without lubrication because like, why should I need it? I'm young, I'm healthy. But lubricant is great. It makes things slippery. It makes things more fun. It makes things more pleasurable. So pain is certainly going to prevent you from having an orgasm. Right. And then inadequate stimulation. So if you're not stimulating the clitoris, like I said, 85% of women need clitoral stimulation. And if you're just focusing on penetrative sex and you don't have favorable anatomy that's going to let you climax through vaginal penetration, then you're not going to climax.
So like men listening basically need to realize a couple things, which is if you are having sex with a woman for 5 to 6 minutes, 90% chance she's not orgasming, even if she sounds like she is.
Yep.
Just like baseline, take that for what it is.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing some sort of foreplay and it's not lasting longer than 25 minutes, you're not fucking Casanova who's killing it magically in 5 to 6 minutes. You're just, the other person just doesn't want to deal with the fact or come clean about it.
Yeah.
Which is like something that I don't think is said enough to dudes.
If a woman has an orgasm and she's like not sure, she didn't have an orgasm.
That's so true. And I think if you have to ask, she didn't have an orgasm either. Like that's really fascinating. And I think kind of freeing because it's not the size of your penis. So it doesn't really matter if it's huge or not. It's a lot about duration and consistency and touching the clitoris. And like, this isn't rocket science, dudes. And so you could like be pretty incredible with your woman with not that much work.
Absolutely. And a lot of it comes from like, just talk to them. But baby, does this feel good? Like, do you like this? What turns you on? What do you like? Like, show me, or even watch, if someone is open to masturbating, watch them masturbate. What do they do? Be like, let's masturbate together. I think that's hot. Like, whatever it is, right? And you're going to find out what they like because they're going to do it. They're going to do it well.
Is it true that women start to desire sex less and that our libido goes down as we get older? And if that is true, can we get it back and how?
So low libido is very common. In fact, 40% of women will have low libido in their lifetime. Your sexual desire is based on a variety of different things. So what happens initially, right? Think about when you're younger and you're dating and you're really excited to see your partner. There's like this atmosphere of desire. You're like, oh, I can't wait to go on a date with you. I'm going to shave my legs. I'm going to look really attractive. I'm going to make sure I'm ready.
Yeah, totally.
Ready for sex, right? If it comes, because you may not, right? You're still dating. And so you're like, okay, let's be ready. And then you get this, like, you get excited about it. And then you get to be with your partner. It's really fun and attractive and you have a great time and everything's wonderful. But then as you're in a longer term relationship, you're like, they're always there. They're always there, and I'm busy and I'm tired, and maybe I'm not in the mood today. Maybe you're not in the mood right now. And so it becomes like you never prioritize sex because you're like, why would I prioritize sex? I've got a job, some kids, like, my parents are aging, all this other stuff is going on. That'll happen when it happens. It's supposed to be spontaneous. I'm supposed to see my partner, see them, get turned on and jump them, right? Like that's how it should be. But the reality of the situation is like, how often does that really happen? It becomes what's called responsive desire. So you start like being with your partner and you're like, you start having foreplay, you start touching, cuddling, whatever. Like, oh yeah, I do like that. Oh, I do want sex, but I didn't know it until I actually became a little bit intimate with my partner. I actually started touching them, being with them. Like, oh yeah, I remember. And that's completely normal. And the thing is that people are so fixated on this, like it needs to be spontaneous, that they won't even cuddle or be intimate with their partner because like, oh, then they're going to want sex and I don't want sex. And so there's also this like back and forth. The issue becomes when you both don't want to have sex because of low libido, that's okay. I mean, like you guys are fine as a relationship. But when one person wants a lot and one person doesn't, that's where it becomes a problem. It's not a problem with the person who has low libido or the person who has high libido. It's about matching the relationship together, right? So I don't want ever to point fingers at someone who has low libido. But there are medical reasons. So obviously there are like lifestyle reasons like I talked about. And obviously stress is a huge killer of libido, right? If you're stressed about anything, like you don't want to have sex, you're thinking about that thing. You're not in your mindful moment to have sex, which is what you need to be. You need to be fully present, enjoying the pleasure that comes with being with your partner. And most of us are like thinking about what we got to do after this is all over, right? And so like we don't take the time and there's no foreplay, right? So when you're in a long-term relationship, you're like, oh yeah, I see you all the time. I love you. Okay. But there's no like sexy texts or like, let me just touch you in the morning and tell you how beautiful I think you are. Or like, hey, I can't wait for later. Like there's no planning. Like, hey, this is going to be our time. This is going to be our time for intimacy. And let's, instead of date night where we go out to dinner and just talk, which is still really important, like, and then we're bloated, we don't want to have sex afterwards. It's like, let's actually say, hey, this is going to be time for intimacy. Like we are going to shut everything else out, put our phones away, be together, get naked. And if sex happens, it happens, but let's just like enjoy each other. Let's like put the pressure off like, oh, I have to have sex. Let's just want to appreciate each other. So like, those are things that I think you can work on as a relationship, but there are reasons, like I said, why libido declines. So in women, we know that libido declines. And one of the reasons is because of testosterone. So testosterone in women, we have more testosterone than we do estrogen in our bodies. So we actually, and that is the hormone of desire. And so we talk about, it's actually having a moment right now, testosterone, but we know that it declines, and it doesn't decline like in menopause, like abruptly, but it declines quite significantly. So you'll find that your testosterone starts declining, and that can affect your ability to have desire. And so that's one reason. And then, so we have, off-label ways to improve desire, and we have on-label ways in terms of medication. So we have 2 on-label medications for premenopausal women. Now they work for postmenopausal women, they work for men, but they are just studied for that population. And so there's one, which is a pill you take every night. It's called Addyi. You take it every night before bedtime. It slowly increases your desire. So it's not like you're going to take it and all of a sudden have a desire, but you might like be doing the dishes and a TV show comes on and you're like, oh, that's kind of hot. And you never thought that before, right? And you're like, okay, I feel myself coming back. I'm getting myself back. I feel like myself again. And then another one is Vyleesi, which is an injection you give yourself 45 minutes before sex, before you want, basically. And it gives you a very sudden increase in desire. And both of these work on the brain. So they try to increase the hormones of desire because there's like a balance, like a seesaw. So there's hormones that increase desire and hormones that don't, or signals. And so we're increasing some of the signals that do increase desire. And so those are a couple options. And then off-label also, you can do testosterone replacement for women.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How big is the population of men that struggle with erectile dysfunction?
So 52% of men over 50. Wow. And that goes up every decade. So 60% at 60, 70% at 70, 80% 80.
So it's really common. Does that mean at like 40 or 30, it's 30 and
it's a little bit
40%?
less. It's a little bit less, probably like 25% in your 40s. But
that's 1 out of 4.
It's a lot. And so that's why some guy will be like, oh, I'm 40. This shouldn't be happening to me. And the thing about erectile dysfunction is it's like an opportunity to find out what's going on with the patient. And a lot of times they come in and the doctor's like, here's some Viagra, bye. But it's like a real opportunity because of the guys who have ED, 14% of those guys will go on to have a heart attack in 7 years. And because it's an early manifestation of problems with blood flow, and problems with blood flow often lead to heart problems. And so it's like 2 to 3 years before you're going to see a heart issue, you're going to see erectile dysfunction.
So what do you do to fix it?
So it's the same things. Anything that's good for your heart is good for your genitals, right? So if it's for blood flow, and that's 70% of the reason that people have ED is from blood flow. I mean, there's obviously psychogenic issues like it's in your head, but I think every guy who has issues with erectile dysfunction has that, right? They're like stressed about it. But 70% of guys with ED, it's because of a blood flow issue. And so what you need to do is improve blood flow. So how do you do that? You do that with diet, with exercise, improving your cholesterol, improving your blood pressure, and moving your body, exercise, like cardiovascular exercise, 150 minutes a week, those sorts of things. So the things that are like not sexy, like nobody wants to do them, but they're so important.
So you could literally, instead of taking Viagra, the research shows that you could solve ED in 70% of cases by working out more and eating healthy.
So there's actually a study that shows that if you exercise 150 minutes a week, moderate intensity cardiovascular exercise, it's as good as taking a Viagra.
That's wild because that's what, 25 minutes a day?
Yeah, 30 minutes a day. 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Fascinating. So then why is Viagra given so much instead of that?
I think because our healthcare system is broken, right? You have 15 minutes to talk to a patient. So you have to get the information, do the exam, and then talk to the patient. So you're like, here's something that can help you. And because a lot of patients, that's what they want. They want a pill that's going to fix their problem.
Yeah. And I think Dr. Tina, when I had her on the pod, which was a great episode too, we didn't talk about sex, but she was talking about how, it is every doctor has like their version of the hammer, which is like, if you're a surgeon, then that's going to be your hammer. And, if you're a psychiatrist, then it's going to be pills. And so it's like whatever is your biggest and hardest weapon is the one that you
and the one that works the
to.
most, right?
Yeah.
Because like exercise works, but it takes a long time and you have to be consistent. And most people lose consistency. And we know that, right? For any behavior change, it's very difficult to maintain.
Yeah.
And so the thing that's going to be most effective is going to be a medication for most people.
Yeah, that's wild. But I had never thought about so do you see very many men struggle with erectile dysfunction that are super fit?
Yes, I do actually.
So then what's going on there?
Usually they have high cholesterol or they have high blood pressure. So they may have family history that causes them to have high blood pressure, or their diet is affecting their cholesterol. And when you get deposits or atherosclerosis from high cholesterol, that affects blood flow. And so they may not know it. They're like really fit. They're like the specimens of men and their cholesterol is high because of their diet or their genetics. And they then have issues with erectile dysfunction.
Because you said something fascinating to me, which is that women who watch porn and read those like kind of romance fantasy novels actually might increase our sex drive.
Yeah, I think it depends. So it depends on how good your sex is in general. So if you are dissatisfied with your partner and you're using these movies or books to escape and like get pleasure for yourself, then it's not going to lead to more intimacy because you're already having bad sex with your partner, right? But whereas like you're in a good, healthy relationship, you enjoy your partner and you're just using these as tools, right? To like enhance your pleasure so that when you're with your partner, you're like really easily getting into the mindset of being able to be pleasured and to be focused and mindful and enjoy. Whereas I think sometimes that's the hardest part for women is that you can't get out of your own head, right? And we say that, but there's data to it. So like when you look at studies of Lori Brotto is a researcher who did the study, they did 20 minutes of mindfulness for women who were having low libido, 20 minutes of mindfulness outside the bedroom every single day. And they saw that after, I think it was 6 or 8 weeks, they had significant improvements in all the domains of female sexual function, desire, arousal, libido, everything. And orgasm, everything. And a lot of those women, when they followed up with them a year later, many of them were still doing mindfulness because they had, and without being prompted, they were still doing it because they had so much benefit from it. Because being mindful outside of the bedroom helped them be more mindful in the bedroom.
What does a mindfulness practice for sex look like?
It's just, sort of, I mean, there's different ways to do it, but generally think about like clearing your head and trying to focus on, your breath and your body and, thoughts will come in, but sort of like saying, okay, let that one go, come back and focus, and sort of just training your brain to be able to focus on your body, what it feels like in space, your breath, those sorts of things.
Oh, so it's not like visualizing sex. It's literally just straight up mindfulness.
Just straight up mindfulness. Yeah.
So almost meditating could help you have a better sex life?
Yeah, absolutely.
Fascinating. I had no idea.
Yeah.
But I guess it does make sense though for women because we're always thinking about something else.
Yeah, I mean, you could think about it, right? Even like doing a podcast, like we have long conversations with people, so we're better at listening for long periods of time because we've trained ourselves to do that. Whereas someone else may not be able to listen to somebody for 2 hours, right?
And we talked a little bit about porn for women, but let's talk about porn for men. I've heard lots of negative things about porn. Is porn bad to watch?
Yeah, so I think that there are I think there's a few like it's a very complex and nuanced discussion. So I think porn has been around for a long, long time, right? It's not new. Porn has been around for a long time, but it's never been as accessible as it is today. It's in our pockets. It's everywhere you go. You can literally pull up a porn video for free anytime. And so that's a problem because people will use it as an escape from like distressing emotions. So it's like, why are you using porn? There's actually studies that look at like, why do people use it? So people use it for pleasure. People use it for learning new skills. People use it to like escape. People use it to avoid negative feelings. And that's where it becomes a problem, right? You use it for negative feelings, and then and if you have some, moral incongruence, like you feel shame because of using it, because of the way you were raised, or because of what society tells you, and then you feel more bad feelings, and then you use it again, and then you have more bad feelings, and it becomes this vicious cycle. And so that's where it becomes a problem. But there's many, many people. I mean, like I think realistically, 90+% of the population has watched pornography at some point in their lifetime. And most people just use it as a tool to have pleasure, to enjoy, to entertain, right?
Yeah.
And in those cases, people tend to do fine. It's when it becomes this like moral incongruence and this shameful spiral where people start really having a problem with it. And then it starts being like, oh, I'd rather watch porn than hang out with people because that gives me distress. Or I'd rather watch porn than hang out with you, or get rejected from my partner because I don't have to work at that, right? And so they start using it as not as a tool for pleasure or enjoyment, but as a tool for escaping life.
So are there studies that show the more porn you watch, the less sex you have?
Not necessarily. So it's not necessarily always correlated with the amount. So if you have, let's say, a moral incongruence, even if you watch porn once a year, you might be very distressed by it, right? Whereas somebody could watch porn every day and like just use it as a tool, and they watch it with their partner. And actually couples who watch it together tend to have more sex. And couples who have the same sort of consumption patterns. So say your partner watches it 3 times a week and you watch it separately 3 times a week. They show that those couples tend to have more sex because they both have similar like thoughts and ideas about, I mean, I'm extrapolating, but like probably because they have similar ideas or they're more aroused together, whatever the case is. And whereas when there's this like dichotomy where someone's using it a lot and someone's not, that's usually where we see more problems.
If you're married and your partner is using porn instead of having sex with you, which seems to be like, this is something people are talking about. Like, we're not having as much sex as I want, but my husband's watching porn, or vice versa. What do you do in that instance? And is that bad or good?
Yeah, so this is a relationship issue, right? So if they're watching porn and they are like rejecting you for sex, that's a problem, right? That's a sign that it's a red flag, right? That's a problem. Whereas if they're watching porn and they initiate with you and you like don't want to all the time, they're also humans, right? So they're like, you keep rejecting me and I still want to have pleasure, so I'm going to go somewhere else and get that pleasure without cheating on you, right? Like I might like use a movie. And so I think there's this balance, but I think really it's a relationship issue. It's like, why is this happening? It's not like it's porn becomes a scapegoat, but why is this happening? Like why, like, is there truly just a problem that you have individually with the porn, or is there a relationship issue that we need to uncover?
So I want to break down 2 things. So one is, let's say that you're not having the amount of sex you want to have right now in a relationship. What are a couple of things you could do today to change that? You've given some pill examples, but what else, like practice-wise, would you say this could work?
So first and foremost, talk to your partner. Like stop thinking about yourself, like actually sit down and be like, hey, I want to talk to you about sex. It doesn't have to be in that moment. Give them a heads up, because look, no one knows how to talk about sex. It's very uncomfortable, right? I talk about it all the time, but like I know when I talk to people and I can feel them getting uncomfortable, right? And so I think it's like, you have to give people heads up and realize like their response might be like, oh, hell no. Like, does this mean something's bad? Is something wrong with me? Am I not pleasing you or whatever? Right. And so I think first give them a heads up, then like, be like, hey, I just want to talk about our sex life. Like, I think we are great and I just want to make it better potentially, and start with the good, right? Like, and ideally I tell people like, don't do it looking them face to face. Maybe go on a walk, maybe in the car. So like, it's the first time you're having a conversation, and just start by finding like, what turns you on? And that's a great way to, even with a new partner, what turns you on? Like, what do you like? And this is what I like. And like, oh, that's great. And like, do you like this? Like, and it could be nonverbal when you're with them. And if it's a new partner, right? Like, like, you hear them responding in a certain way, that means they like it. And that's why I don't like faking, right? Like, don't fake. Like, when you like something, you will automatically make the noises they want to hear, right? Like, you don't need to fake it. But so, yeah, I would say that's first and foremost is start the conversation. It is not going to be one conversation. It's going to be an evolving, long time. Every so often, you're going to have to sit down and talk about it, like what works, what doesn't.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is like adding novelty, right? So we think about like, it's good to have a routine, a comfort, like, oh, this always works. We both like enjoy it. We both climax, whatever it is. But like it gets, if you're eating dinner, you don't want to eat chicken every day. Right. So some days you want to have a steak or you want to have tofu or like whatever. Right. And so it's like you want to change it up. And the same thing goes for sex. So it doesn't even have to be that crazy. Like it might be doing it on a different side of the bed or like in the kitchen instead of the bedroom. Or you could buy stuff. Like you could buy things to just play with and have fun. Again, sex is supposed to be play. It shouldn't be that serious. So like just be open and be playful and enjoy. And I think you will find that just incorporating these small things can make a huge difference.
Is it ever possible in relationships for it to just stay spontaneous forever? Or is that just something we are telling ourselves that is another way for us to beat ourselves up, that we read these romance novels, which are like women's form of porn, I think, these days.
Yeah.
And it's like all of a sudden the Hulk's picking up the woman every 7 seconds. They're having sex everywhere. The sex is glorious. She has to do nothing. It's totally blissful. And then we should have that for the 50 years that we're married. Like, is that reasonable? Or is it totally unreasonable to think that you won't have to plan sex as you get older?
I would say that it's likely unreasonable to think that, right? I mean, I can't say there's not people. I mean, there's certainly people who are more sexual. And like, say you are reading those books, like that means you're probably going to be more into your partner. So there's data that like women who watch pornography, and this is not like everybody, but like women who enjoy those sorts of things are more sexually adventurous, more, they like to have sex with their partner and they actually have more sex if you look at the amount of time they have sex with their partner. So, so there is like, if you are potentially consuming things together as a couple, that's naturally the kind of person you are, then yes, absolutely. If your partner's also that way, it's possible. But I would say most times you have to work at it because life is ever evolving, right? Like your priorities are not the same at all times in your life. Imagine yourself 10 years ago, very different than where you're sitting right now. And it'll be very different 10 years from now. And so, it takes work. And I think the thing is people are so afraid to work at sex. Like, why should I have to work at sex?
Right.
Right. It's a natural thing. But guess what? You had to learn everything. You had to learn how to walk. Like you have to learn how to get good at sex. And it doesn't just happen. You're not just going to be good at it because you're good looking or because you have a large organ or because like whatever. It's not going to just make you good at sex. Right. And so you have to learn, you have to practice, and you have to learn with your partner if you're in a relationship, right? Like what do they like? Everyone's not exactly the same. And so, yes, there's things that work for many, many people, but it's about finding out what they like and really like identifying that and playing. Sex is supposed to be playful.
Is the G-spot real?
Yeah, the G-spot is a zone, actually. It's not a spot. And I think people are like, where is it? What is it? Like, is it a button? Do I have to find it? Like, no, it's just an area, right? So it's like the top of the vagina, and it's about 2 to 3 centimeters in. That's where it's very densely innervated. There's an area called the Skene's glands, which also have innervation there. And so that can be very pleasurable. But what I tell people is people are like, oh, if I stimulate that area, they're going to orgasm. But a G-spot in a female is the same as the prostate in the male. And so while some guys like prostate play, not everyone does. And not everyone orgasms from prostate play. And so the same thing goes for women. And I think the other thing is like there's variations in anatomy. So in the G zone, there's also like the clitoral bodies, which people also don't realize. It's not just the glands, the little head that you see on the outside. It actually goes deep into the pelvis. And it curves downward just like the male penis does. And so there's a shaft basically, but it's internal. Mm-hmm. And so when you're stimulating the G zone, you're also stimulating the clitoral shaft. Mm-hmm. And so for some people where there's maybe some, the width of that area or like the volume in that area is different. You might get more clitoral stimulation through vaginal penetration. And so those people may orgasm more easily through vaginal penetration, whereas others will not. It's just an anatomic difference. Like it's not a big deal, but there's other ways to stimulate a partner and really get them to climax. And what does it matter if it's not your penis doing it? It's you doing it. That's what matters.
Where did we get this belief that women come every single time from penetration?
Well-
Like, why is that so pervasive?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say where it started, but I can tell you that like it's like think about every movie you watch where there's a sex scene. It is literally there's like I can't remember the first time I saw like clitoral stimulation in a mainstream TV show or movie was like Sex Life, that show on Netflix,
Yeah,
right?
you're right.
I don't think I saw it ever before that. Like on Sex and the City, I don't remember anyone like except for talking about vibrators. I don't remember them ever doing anything besides penetrative sex.
You're so right.
Right? So
Yeah.
it was always depicted as penetrative sex. And that's what gets people off. And so I can imagine that, like, okay, then women are like, hey, I'm having penetrative sex. I'm not orgasming. Maybe I need a bigger penis. Like, maybe that's the answer. Like, I don't know. Right? They don't know because no one taught them. And so they're like, maybe bigger will be better. Maybe girthier will be better. Well, girthier might be a little better because you're having more pressure on the shaft of the clitoris. But like, yeah, so what exactly is, so I think it's one, there's no education. Two, it was never shown to us. And three, there's always been this obsession with like penile size. Like my kids are like 9 and 11. Well, my 11-year-old will talk about his penile size. I mean, we talk about everything at home because I'm his mom, but like, like I'm like, dude, like you haven't gone through puberty, like chill, Hopefully he never listens to this podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Well, or finds your YouTube channel. So, like, let's talk about that because I think there's also a lot of commentary about what's normal in penis size.
Mhm.
What is actually normal?
It's about 5.3 to 5.7 inches erect. So not huge, not like what we think is average, right? Everyone's like, 12. I want a 12. Like 12. Do you know how big 12 inches is?
Opt out, unsubscribe. No, thank you. Absolutely not.
Like, no, that's not. And so when you look at the average people are going to range between like 5 to 5.7 inches, fully erect. And so, that is average. And then when you look at the bell curve, like most people fall into that category. And when you start going to like 7.5 to 8 inches, that's like the top 5%. And like, they're probably all like, porn stars. But no, not exactly. But, a lot of them are. And so, I think it's just like what we see, right? People see like people who are in erotic films and you have very large organs and they're using like camera tricks and all this stuff to make it look bigger. And so they're like, oh, that's gotta be what's normal.
So many brands are obsessed with new customers, but the best brands, they know retention is where the margin lives. And OmniSend is retention in a box. You get abandoned cart flows, thank you sequences, review requests, re-engagement messages, all automated. Email and SMS are triggered by actual customer behavior. So someone buys, hit them with an upsell. Someone ghosts, win them back before they're gone for good. You don't even have to write the sequences. They've got the templates that just work. The ROI is real, and it keeps getting better the longer it runs. Acquisition gets the glory, but retention builds the empire. OmniSend makes sure your business stops leaking customers and starts compounding them.
Is it true, and are there studies that show that young men watching increasingly more porn have problems later on in life? And what are those problems? Is that happening to our younger generation? What's going on there?
Yeah, so it's hard to study, but I definitely think there is. So what's happening is that this is how young men are learning about sex. They don't learn anything in school. There's only 22 states in the United States that are required to have accurate sexual education in school.
Interesting.
So you might have sexual education. It might be accurate. It might not. And usually it's just how to put on a condom, how to get consent, and that's pretty much most of it, right? You're not going to have a lot of like, this is what happens when you get aroused. This is what happens when you have sex. This is what happens to the female body when it gets aroused. Like there's no discussion about that, right? And so people don't know. And their parents are also just like talking about like being safe sex. It's usually very instructional, right? Like, or not instructional, it's usually very like abstinence or safety based.
Right.
Now they're like, I need instructions. So then I go to porn, right? Because I don't have anywhere else to learn this. I can't ask my parents. How could I ask them, right? And that would be so weird. And so like, we don't talk, and parents are like, well, they should be learning it at school. And so I always say like, you as a parent have to talk to your kid about sex. You have to, it is your job. Like you just have to teach them because that is your job. You are the adult, get over it. Like talk to them about sex and talk to them about porn because what happens is they're going to come across it. You can put all the blockers you want. The average age of a young person seeing porn is 10.
Woo!
10.
Wow.
So before 10, you should talk to your kid about porn because what if they come across something on their friend's phone or wherever and they're like, what is this?
And they're stimulated and then they're confused.
They're stimulated, they're confused. And then, so they watch it maybe even a few times, who knows what, right? And then they have sex the first time and they're like, oh, this didn't go like the movie did, right? She didn't respond the way, or he didn't respond the way that happened. So something wrong with me? Am I broken? Now I'm stressed. And the next time I try to have sex, that stress is either making it difficult for me as a man to get an erection or as a woman to get aroused because I'm like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? I'm thinking like, I'm so stressed about it that I can't function. And now I'm like, I am broken. I'm truly broken. Something is wrong with me. And oh, but I can't go to a doctor because, or when I do go to the doctor, I get dismissed because unfortunately there's just, oh, it's all in your head. Right. And so because, you see a young person, everything should be fine with you. Your blood flow, everything should be fine. So it's got to be psychogenic. And so they get dismissed. No one has the conversation like why it might be in your head. And then you're like, okay, now I'm just broken. And porn ruined me or whatever ruined me. And yeah, part of it is like, should 10-year-olds be watching porn? No, like I think equivocally everyone can agree that should not be the case, that you should not be watching porn until you are an adult and you can separate fantasy from reality.
Yeah, but what would that even look like? Like, do you think parents should teach their kids like not just about sex? It's so fascinating. I've only ever gotten the safety talk. I got the, here's what happens. Boy meets girl. Don't get pregnant.
Use a condom. Yep.
Use a condom. This is what it looks like if you have a baby. Oh my God, that's so scary.
Yeah.
But I never got here's what good sex feels like, or like, what would that even look like?
Yeah, so
what do you do with your kids?
Yeah. So I don't start with like, let's talk about like, first we teach obviously like, what are your body parts and how does sex work and what happens during sex and why is so like you start with, so I have boys, I can tell you for boys what I do. So, okay, they get an erection and they're like, mommy, why is it getting bigger? And most parents are like, oh my God, it's just it's nothing. Right.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you do panic. Like I remember the first time my son asked me about sex and I said, okay, give me a minute. Let me think about how I'm going to answer you. I'll tell you later. Right. Because I was like, I hadn't thought it through yet. And so even me who teaches about sex was like, I hadn't thought about how to talk to my son about it. So I said, okay, let me think about it. And so then I came back to him and I said, okay, well, so we'd already talked about erections because they get them. They get spontaneous erections all the time, young boys. And so I'm like, okay, this is normal. This is what happens. It's because there's more blood flow there. And it's a totally normal thing. And so they're like, oh, okay, it's normal. I'm like, yeah, sometimes it feels tingly or it feels different or it feels, that's normal. Completely normal. Nothing bad is happening to you. I reassure them, right? And then, when they ask, what is sex? And I'm like, okay, well, that's what happens. And I obviously preface it with like, you only do it with someone that you're, whatever your personal values are, you bring that into the conversation. And then, you be safe about it. But I was like, I tell them the basics, like, you know how you get an erection. Well, when your partner is aroused and they also get lubricated and then you insert the penis in the vagina, right? And like, so they're like, okay. And I'm like, look, I know this is a lot, like ask me questions. And so I let them, because sometimes you can't think like a kid. You can't like think what they're thinking. So then you say, well, what do you want to know about it? Like, even if you don't want to just go into the whole like semantics, like what are you curious about? Like, what do you want to know? And so just answer the best you can. And even if you're a little awkward or you're uncomfortable, like they don't really know that. They just know that you're talking to them and you're their parent, right? I mean, think about when you were a kid, like your parents, you thought they were amazing. You were like, they just do everything. Like you never thought that they were insecure or like awkward. You were just like, oh, they're just perfect. Like they're my parents. And I mean, most people have a good relationship, but like, so I think, it's just like ask and then leave the door open. So like talking about porn is really awkward. But what I would say is like, hey, you might come across some videos where you see people having sex. So we already talked about sex, right? And they might be confusing to you. So if you do, just come talk to me. Yeah. Like I want you to be able to comfortable and you build that relationship with them where they can talk to you about it.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, God, what a difference it would be in even like our generation if we had also learned what it was not supposed to feel like is the right word, but like I can only imagine if my mom had been like, this is the clitoris. Like I don't think I knew what that wasn't until I was like 25.
Yeah. I mean, med students don't know what it is, right? Like I have medical students put in catheters for women. I'm a urologist. And so we would teach them how to put it in. And so many would like go towards the clitoris. I'm like, nope, down. The urethra is lower. Right. That's the clitoris. And so, and even in our training, there's very little discussion about the clitoris. We're now starting to have this discussion like, hey, the clitoris has foreskin. Hey, it can get smegma. There's other issues. You have to look at the clitoris and you have to examine the clitoris because what if there's a problem there? What if there's a pathology there? And so it's like even people who are doing these genital exams, like your gynecologist and your urologist, are not getting really trained on it.
Right. And where do you go if people want to get better at sex? So say they actually want to learn how to have sex better and they want to know themselves better too. Like, what do you tell them?
Well, I tell people you have to explore, right?
Yeah.
So like I would say getting better with sex is one with yourself and one with the partner. So explore by yourself, understand like what happens when you touch certain areas or what areas do you like to have touched. And like sometimes that's very uncomfortable for people. Like you have to sort of meet people where they are. So if they're not comfortable with that, then there's other ways. But like I would say that's one.
Do you give them a book? Do you say like, I like these books or no?
Not necessarily. I think that innately people like kids, like, kids will like touch themselves. Like they know, inherently what feels
What you
good,
like.
right?
Yeah.
And they're not doing it because they like want to feel pleasure. They're doing it because they think it soothes them, right? They don't know. They're like, it soothes me, right? And so people generally know. And so it's like, giving them permission. Like it's okay to explore your own body. It's your body, right? You're allowed to understand what you like and don't like. Like, I think it's very different from boys and girls. Like boys, they figure it out very easily.
They really do.
And they're going at it, right? And no one ever even questions it. Like, oh, he's probably just jerking off in his room, right? Like it's like it's like okay. And that's fine. No one ever says like, oh, you shouldn't. I mean, maybe they do say you shouldn't do that, but like people just do it, right? And then they're like, oh, just don't do it in front of people.
Exactly.
Right? Don't do that in the living room. Like, but it's like, it is something though that we do cloud and shame. So you'll be like, oh my God, don't do that. Like that's another way. Like don't react to your kids. Just be like, hey, this is, it's fine to do this, but like you should do this in privacy. Like, this is something we do privately.
Right.
Because that also internalizes the shame around sex very early on. Now, for women, it's like, it's not as obvious and it's not as intuitive. And there's a lot more like, be a good girl, don't do this, don't like, and so there's a lot less like openness. So it's also like starting at a young age. It's like, hey, like this is your body. This is your anatomy. This is, what sex is. This is what pleasure is, like teaching our girls that. And then I think, again, meeting people where they are, talk to your partner, explore. So one thing that we do often when people are really in their heads about sex is like the sex therapist will prescribe something called sensate focus. So what that is we say, you're not allowed to penetrate. You're not even allowed to touch the genitals. You, when you're with your partner, want to explore other areas, find your erogenous zones, touch everywhere, but don't touch the genitals and start really just like, there's no stress about that, right? You don't have to perform. Nothing has to happen. Like, but just touch each other and feel sensual and enjoy each other and figure out what feels good. And once you're like in your head and you're like, oh, wow, this is great. I'm enjoying it. Then you start touching genitals. And then you're like, okay, now I'm not stressed about that either. Then we start talking about penetrative sex. And so sort of a way to just work together. And if you're like, I don't know what I like, it's hard to admit that. It's hard to admit that. And so to be like, to say to your partner, like, I don't really know. And like, I'd love for us to figure it out together.
And a lot of this stuff about sex seems like it's really about your health overall, like entire bodily health, not just genital health. And then simultaneously relationship or mental.
Yeah.
It's like we keep treating this one area, but it's actually just
everything.
a symptom of the human.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you like, it's such a good biomarker of health. Your ability to have sex, so to have desire, to get aroused, to climax, and to feel good at the end of it all those things should be intact, right? And when there's a problem with one of them, it tells us, hey, is there a blood flow problem? Is there a hormonal problem? Is there a mental problem? Is there a neurologic problem? Is there something that you're taking that's affecting your sexual function? And so we got to investigate all those things. And I can't tell you, like, this is one of the greatest ways to find out if something is wrong with you metabolically in your body, right? Because it's a sign that something is awry and we need to investigate. And oftentimes it's a metabolic cause for men and women, right? Like there's probably, like I can tell you that women with diabetes have less arousal and often have more issues with libido.
Yeah. But, and then, so overall, do you think the data seems to say, are we having less sex
Absolutely.
than ever before?
Absolutely.
So across the country, what's sort of happening?
I mean, there's so many things that I could speculate on. One is I think that like we have phones, right? So like in the bed before going to sleep or like when you're bored, you look at your phone. But before sometimes you'd be bored and you're like, hey, my partner's next to me. Like I'll just have sex with them. Like why not? Right? Or they'd initiate and you wouldn't be like, hey, leave me alone. I got to look at my Sudoku or
Yeah.
whatever you're doing, right? And now like you have something else that's constantly taking your attention away. So I think that's one. Two is that the stressors are so much higher, right? Like I think the world has changed. The economic landscape has changed. Like it's more difficult to financially like own a home. These are so many different things, right? So I think that there's more stressors in life.
Yeah.
And I think that and there's more expectations from people. Like we're much more individualized. And so like when, like in India, for example, it's much more community feel. So like everyone raises the kids, everyone takes care of the kids, everyone helps each other. And so you have like more people to help you. Whereas now we just like are an island to ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because we talk a lot about things that could progress society, forward. And at the end of the day, it sort of feels like there's been this kind of continuous attack on the nuclear family. Not saying that in some conspiratorial way, just like so many things that have been created have sort of torn apart this nuclear family. And so I think it's so important to talk about sex because that's where life comes from,
Yeah.
and for whatever reason, what did our parents always say? Don't talk about religion, sex, and politics and money, right? And
Yeah.
I mean, for the life of me, I can't understand why you wouldn't talk about money. I can't understand why you wouldn't talk about faith in a positive way. I can't understand why you wouldn't talk about sex in a non-shameful, inappropriate way. And so it does feel like there's kind of like this resurgence of people willing to talk about it. So I'm really glad that you do.
Thank
because
you.
yeah, I mean it's hard to do it in a way that is both entertaining and also super informative.
Yeah. And I think it's just so important. Like it's how we progress in society, right? That's why there's so much urge for sex. That's why people want to have a lot of sex. That's why sex sells, because we are hardwired to look for sex. We are hardwired to procreate. And so it is so important. And if we literally stop having sex because of all these external factors, then like what's going to happen to society? Like who's going to take care of our aging population? Like what's going to happen? It's a problem.
Let's say that, there's quite a few people here that want to extend their sex span, which I didn't even know that that's a word.
Yeah.
Like how long do humans normally want to still have sex? Like until what age? And how do we increase the amount and duration of our age to want to have sex?
So it's interesting. I actually did a study when I was a resident. I don't think I ever published it, but I did a study because I was like, I asked this exact question. I was like, what about older people? Like how old are they when and turns out that 80, 90-year-olds still want to have sex. And honestly, what happens is that if you continue to cultivate desire, like you still like took care of yourself and you continue to have sex throughout your life and you will still continue to want it, right? Because there's a natural urge to want pleasure and to enjoy people and to have intimacy and connection. But what really happens is sometimes people start getting sexual dysfunction and so they avoid sex. And then as you stop having sex or you start avoiding it, your desire decreases too. And so that whole thing about use it or lose it is sort of true in the sense that like if you don't continue to have sex, your desire will automatically get lower. The other thing is if you're not getting good blood flow to the genitals, they will start to develop changes in the tissues, which will lead to maybe scarring or what we call fibrosis, which will then make it even more difficult to get blood flow down there because the tissues are no longer healthy. And so that's the other thing that happens. So that's why I think sex span is much shorter than lifespan, because you can live without blood flow to your genitals, but you can't necessarily get an erection or get clitoral tumescence and feel arousal because you're not getting good blood flow down there. And then because you're not using it and your desire is going down, you're just not having sex, right? And so I think that the reason to improve sex span is one, like we know that people who have more sex live longer. There's actually data to support that when you're having sex once a week, that those people live longer and have less depression than people that don't. Now, I don't think you should like have to strive for once a week if that's not in your, but like meaning you're continuing to have regular sex with your partner. And I think that's the take home because one, you're getting good. We know that things are functioning well. It's a biomarker of health. You're getting good blood flow, your hormones are working. All those things are in good order. You're intimate with another person. You're connecting with another person, which is so vital for feeling human connection. And so I think all those things you're usually happier, and happiness has a good positive predictive value. And so all those things together are going to expand your lifespan.
Let's talk about pelvic floor. So you brought this up before. I had no idea. I don't even think I knew this was a thing until I was like 35. And one of my girlfriends actually the other week told me something that I thought was crazy. You probably understand, but she's like, she had some pelvic floor issues. And so she went and she got a pelvic floor massage, which is like I don't think she called it a massage. I'm going to call it a massage. But like
I'm sure I know what she called it.
Yeah. They go in and they actually, what is this
Okay,
pelvic floor?
So-
How do we fix it? Why are people massaging the insides of my friends' vaginas? What's going on here?
Yeah. So okay. Pelvic floor is a bowl of muscles, right? It sits in our pelvis. Men and women have a pelvic floor. I think people forget this. Like men also have a pelvic floor. And this pelvic floor is like something that's like a part of our core musculature. So people think abs, right? But it's abs, back muscles, pelvic floor. It's activated all the time. We're using it with every step. It's helping us remain stable. It's helping hold up our organs. It's helping us when we pee and poop. It's helping women when they're pregnant. Like it's part of our sex lives. It contracts, like I said, 0.8 seconds. It's part of, that whole sexual response. And so it's a very important structure, right? Many structures, a bunch of muscles all together. And so these muscles usually work fine and we don't think about it. They're just doing what they need to do, but they can become dysfunctional. So there's a couple different ways they can become dysfunctional. They can become dysfunctional when they're weak. So that's where people like do Kegels to strengthen the muscles. And that's when women are maybe leaking with coughing, sneezing, jumping on the trampoline. Maybe they're having some prolapse, like things are falling down. With men, we don't see it as often, but they might notice that they're in very extreme circumstances, they have rectal prolapse, like their rectum will prolapse out. But sometimes they'll just
That means it like
protrudes out their
extends,
bottom
yeah.
when they have a poop.
that does not sound fun.
No, it's very rare. And then, but more often it'll be like, oh, maybe their ejaculate is not going as far as it used to, right? It's just not as forceful as it used to be. And so, but usually you can't tell with men when it's weak. So that's very common. That's what we think about a lot when we think about the pelvic floor, because we like do your Kegels, right? To strengthen your pelvic floor.
Which is just squeezing your
It's
vagina?
Essentially an exercise where you're pulling the pelvic floor muscles, you're contracting them, you're squeezing them up
Yeah.
and in, right?
Yeah.
And so we describe it, there's many different ways to describe it, but like it's like as if you're peeing and then you stop the stream of urine. You don't want to do it when you're urinating, but that's how you can figure out the moves. For women, we'll say like squeezing up and in the vagina, like you're trying to pluck a blueberry up with your vagina. And then for men, I tell them like it's like you're like holding in a fart. For both genders, you're holding in a fart.
Jesus.
And then for men, I'll tell them it's like you're lifting up your penis off the ground without touching it.
Yeah.
And I just say, but you don't want to be clenched. It's hard because it's natural to clench your abdomen and your bottom, but you don't want to clench those. You just want to focus on those pelvic floor muscles. And so it's basically a contraction, squeeze and relax, just like you would do a bicep contraction, right? And so that's a Kegel. And it's great for strengthening the pelvic floor, but it's not the only thing you need to do. And it's good when you have a weak pelvic floor. But when you have a tight pelvic floor, which is what I think your friend had, it actually can hurt you to do Kegels because you're strengthening an already tight and tense muscle. And you want to relax that muscle first. And so when people have a tight pelvic floor, and this is pretty common, I think underdiagnosed, is when people have a lot of tension in that pelvic floor and it's tight and contracted. And why does that happen? Because of trauma, because of stress, because of anxiety, because of other conditions sometimes can cause, like if you had surgery or other things can like tense up those muscles. And just like people get TMJ and they tense their jaw at night and they wake up with headaches and they don't even know they're doing it. It's the same thing. It's not like you're controlling your pelvic floor. It's just your body's response to that, whatever the cause is. And so I don't want anyone to feel shame if they have high tone pelvic floor. It just happens. It's nothing you can control. And so then when it happens, people usually don't do anything. They might notice, oh, I'm going to the bathroom a little more often. I'm maybe having some constipation. Maybe I'm having back pain. Maybe I'm having pain with sex. Maybe I'm having pain with orgasm. And with men, I might be having a little bit less strong erections. Maybe I'm having pain in the testicles for men. And so you're like, okay, what's going on? Something is off. And it could present in any of those ways. So I describe it as like if you had your bicep curl and your bicep was stuck like this, obviously your bicep might hurt, but your shoulder might hurt. Your elbow might hurt. Your wrist might hurt. So you're going to see dysfunction in areas that are connected to the pelvic floor. And so in those cases, we need to learn how to relax those muscles. And so there's different exercises you can do to relax, like yoga poses, like child's pose, happy baby, figure 4, low deep squats, diaphragmatic breathing. All those things can help. But sometimes people will actually like massage the muscles, just like you would massage a muscle that's tense. The same thing is they massage those muscles to help relax the muscles. And so pelvic floor physical therapy, when you go to physical therapists, can include that if you feel comfortable in sort of helping you learn how to relax those muscles.
I just immediately started giving her shit, which said my maturity level with this. I was like, you did what? Where? What happened? But she said it really helped her.
Yeah.
And she didn't realize basically how much stress and everything she had. But I live in Austin where you are now, so I'm like, I don't know. It might just be like the woo-woo people in Austin, but maybe it's not. There seems to be a lot of data that says that like drugs and alcohol for sex are bad.
Mhm.
But I have a lot of girlfriends totally qualitatively that'll use like cannabis, let's
Mhm.
say, because
Mhm.
it can be a vasodilator from what I
Mhm.
understand and open up blood flow
Mhm.
and actually find that it's incredible
Yeah.
for sex when targeted. What is it about drugs and alcohol and sex for women? Should we use them? Should we not?
So marijuana, CBD, THC, whichever form you want to use, has been shown to increase libido in the short term, right? It's the problem becomes you're using it all the time because it does sort of mellow you out, right? And it can then over chronic use sort of just decrease desire, right? Over long periods. But when you're introducing it in short spurts, it can absolutely increase libido. And in terms of alcohol, for some people, it does allow them to get uninhibited or be more spontaneous. But again, when you're using it all the time, generally speaking, alcohol as a whole has been found more and more to be just not healthy, right? It's
Yep.
more causes concern for cancer, overall health, so many different areas, right? And so, like, I think for that reason, I just don't recommend it, right?
Yeah.
And then you can also make poor judgment calls if you're too inebriated, right? And then we talk about alcohol for men causing sometimes arousal issues, like having difficulty with erections. And I suspect that probably the same is for women, although we've never studied it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So, like, if you drink and you're a man, you
Mhm.
have an increased likelihood of decreased arousal. You're more likely to not be aroused.
Correct. And that's, interesting. I actually did a deep dive in the day. That's what we tell people, right? Like you can get whiskey dick if you get
Yeah.
too inebriated.
Yeah.
And that's probably true. But like, I think that when you look at the data, it's more when people who are like chronically having a lot of alcohol use that are really having these problems. But I think it's also a nice thing to say, like, look, things happen, right? Like for men, like things happen and sometimes you won't have an erection and like there might be a reason for it. Like don't freak out.
Yeah.
And I think that's the real take home I want people to take. But I think again, for women, it can sometimes cause changes in arousal. It depends on the level of inebriation. And these are hard to study.
Well, I hope that people take this podcast and they share it with people and they follow you on the social channels, because I think these are things that are really hard to talk about by yourself to your partner.
Absolutely.
And I think they're hard for you to talk about maybe with your family. But if you can, forward an episode along that talks about it in a way that is not lowbrow, but is also really approachable. We don't have to listen to, love Andrew, but we don't have to listen to, 3.5 hours super data heavy podcast on sex, but we also don't have to listen to, call her daddy, hypersexualized. We can just like, talk to a doctor who's done this for decades in a way that's really, really approachable. So hopefully if you're listening, you felt the same way and you forward this to somebody that you think would benefit. I think where I want to end is like a couple futuristic things. So, you've been a clinician, you've been a researcher, you have been on social media with hundreds of millions of people viewing your work all regarding sex. Do you think in the future we're going to change some of these trajectories? Like, will it be possible for us to have more sex in the future? Do you have positive outlooks on how we could change this? Or are you like, unless we make major changes, fertility is going to be an issue and sexual intimacy is going to be an issue and you don't like where the future's headed?
We have to make changes. And I think people are starting to see it. Like, I think, so in Europe, they're making decisions, they're making some legislation, I forget which country exactly, where they're encouraging, they're giving incentives for people to go on vacation because vacation is stress, but not because they want people to go on vacation and use their money, because they actually want people to go on vacation, de-stress and have sex and have babies, right? Because they're realizing that their population is declining and that who's going to take care of the aging generation. So I think it is going to have to come to some degree from legislation. Also, like women are delaying childbirth because there's no support, right? Like you're young and you don't want to quit your job, but childcare is expensive and like there's no support and women are not getting motivated or promoted or they're looked at as, not as valuable employees because they're going to go have pregnancy. We have to change that, right? And so I think there will be changes. I think there have to be changes because otherwise we're headed to a place where we're just not propagating society, right? And so I'm hopeful that I think in general, like things go in a sine wave. Like there's going to be like some pendulum swing one way and then things are going to go back. Ultimately, it always sort of goes ebbs and flows. If you look at like the trajectory of history, right?
Mhm.
So I'm hopeful. I mean, I have to be, like, otherwise we wouldn't have made it this far in society. So
Yeah. What's a really good point about women today too, with, the repercussions of sex, ideally, which are pregnancy.
Mhm.
I still felt like this. I mean, I have a lot of resources. I'm relatively successful, and I'm 38 now, and I
Mhm.
can't tell you. Probably up until a few years ago, I thought, I don't know how I could do it. Like, I
Mhm.
don't know if I could have a baby and work as much as I need to, and grow this business and be relevant, and like all of these real fears. And
Mhm.
so I think, and then I employ mothers here who are incredible,
Right.
and like more efficient, arguably, and more effective in a lot of ways than somebody who doesn't.
And
And
I think
yet,
working together is so important, right? Like we all
yeah,
bring something unique to the table. And so I think it's just like we have to value that. We have to support mothers in having children, but also allow them to succeed in their own right. And I think that there's some people who are better mothers because they work. I know I am, right?
yeah,
Like I'm more intentional with my kids. I spend more quality time with them because I go to work, and then I come home and I'm present with them because I now have been stimulated as a human adult.
100%.
And so I think that, but there's some people who would be better staying at home, and that's okay too, right? But like we just have to promote that and support that.
Do you think we'll have sex with robots in the not too distant
I'm
future?
sure we will. But I hope that like it just won't, like, you don't want someone to yes you to death, right? You need a little bit of
Oof,
tension.
yeah.
I just worry that the AIs will learn that tension and then we're in trouble, right? Because you
Mm.
don't want to just be like, yes, 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 I think you're great all the time. Like that gets boring. We need human like, connection. And so I don't know. I mean, I think that's a little bit scary.
I know. I was at this event the other day, and it was an AI event with one of the, I won't say the name of the company, but a well-known company in the AI space. And the woman and man who were running the talk, they basically were saying, well, it was kind of a boring talk, honestly. I was listening and it was over my head, and
Mhm.
I don't really know. And they were saying, yeah, well, AI is going to do this and this, and AI, we already have friendships with AI, and we have, working relationships with AI. We'll start to have intimacy with AI, and then we'll eventually have sex with AI. And I was like, excuse me, and it sort of like snapped me out. And I raised my hand. I was like, I'm sorry, you're going to have to double click on the last thing about us having sex with AI. And they had said a statement that I thought was so interesting. They were like, well, um, we have already had sex with magazines, aka Playboy,
Yeah.
etc.
Mhm.
We've had sex with computers, obviously, porn. We have sex
Mm.
with our phone, porn. And then one guy in the back was like, yeah, sometimes if it's a good looking cloud, and like when I was a kid. And I kind of did chuckle while simultaneously being really scared about the future in some ways, because we humans sometimes do like the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
And so if we can go down a slippery slope in which the robot or AI always says yes and gives us exactly what we want, it already seems like we're choosing less difficulty in health and relationships and marriage. So I think it's really important, the stuff that you're saying out there, because maybe it's not actually so hard. Maybe having sex with a human is incredibly more fulfilling than porn is in all the
Oh,
ways
it is.
imaginable, and
Absolutely.
it's so accessible.
When you look at brain studies, like, yeah, your brain it lights up with porn, but it lights up way more with a person, way
Interesting.
more. And so, like, if you look at the research, so yeah, our bodies want people. It's just becoming more and more difficult, and we're becoming more and more distanced because of it. And I think, like I said, I'm very hopeful that it's going to come back to like, sort of back to some level of normalcy. And we have a responsibility. Like I know people want to make money and AI dolls sound like a great idea, but like we have a responsibility to withhold and to take care of society as a whole. Like we can't just turn us into like, AI loving humans and like, oh, we're filling a gap with AI. Like no, we need to fix the gap.
Yeah, you do hope that entrepreneurs choose a path that is better for society as opposed to only makes money. We'll have to see what ends up happening there.
Yeah.
But I think that's very, very true. It's like you get to choose the thing that you work on. But it's an interesting point. So like so the brain studies can actually show that you get more pleasure from having sex with a
They just show up,
human?
the areas light up, right? So
Interesting.
yes, that they light up more intensely. And it's because I suspect because there's like touch receptors on the skin that can only be stimulated by a human hand, not even a gloved hand. It has to be a human touch. And so I think that is the reason that you're getting additional inputs that are like much more pleasurable.
That's actually one of the best use cases I've heard against pure robot sex
Mm-hmm.
is that it might be more fulfilling
Yeah.
scientifically with a human. I think we already all know spiritually
Yeah.
that with a human it makes much more sense. And also, I mean, anybody who's ever masturbated to porn before, I don't think at the end of masturbating to porn, you're like, oh, bliss, universe. This is like incredible. I just had a spiritual transcendence. You're kind of like,
it's a tool. It's
yeah.
a tool. It is not a person.
You're like, I showered.
Yeah.
And that happened.
Like it felt nice, sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a prequel to the real thing eventually, right? Like when you're with a partner.
yeah. Well,
As it should be.
I love that. Well, thank
Yeah.
you so much for being here. This was so interesting. We're going to do the whole thing in the beginning, but I mean, your YouTube channel is incredible.
Thank you.
Is that where you like to send more people, or do you go to
Yeah.
Instagram too? Or
Yeah, I'm on YouTube. That's my biggest channel, but I also have a podcast and I have an Instagram. I'm on all the socials, but the biggest one is YouTube.
yeah, and
podcast.
Dr. Rena Malik everywhere.
Rena Malik, MD, everywhere.
MD.
Mhm.
Yes, important couple letters that you spent a
have-
lot of years behind
I
getting
did,
those too.
I did. And you have to type the whole thing in on Instagram because I get shadow banned all the time.
No way,
So you
because
type in Rena Malik, MD, or you won't find me.
because you're talking about penis size on
And
the reg.
sex.
That's why. Well, I guess with all the
Yeah.
OnlyFans or something.
It's interesting to me because there's like women posting like see-through dresses and they're fine. And it's
Yeah.
like people talking about sex from a scientific background. And all of us, like sex therapists, doctors, like who talk about sex, we all get shadow banned.
That's fascinating. You would think that Facebook by some point would be able to like double click on the fact that you're sitting here in like a button down talking about pelvic floor, you know?
I know. You think so.
But not quite.
Not there yet.
One of my favorite videos of yours was actually talking about, we'll link it in the show notes, was actually talking about pelvic floor, which is where I learned a lot from it and
Mhm.
how important that is for pregnancy and for longevity, which I
Mhm.
didn't realize. And I also did think the ones on penis size was pretty clever.
Yeah,
So
cute.
thank you so much for being here.
No problem. Thank you.
At the end, I was going to have Rena sign a postcard, and I asked her what she would say to her young self. And she said, don't fake orgasm, which made me sort of giggle, but I think is also really true. If you guys liked this podcast, please do me a favor, like and subscribe. Turns out a bunch of you come every single week. Like 40% of you come every single week and you listen to the podcast, but you don't actually subscribe. So make sure to follow along. Also, if you're like me right now, you're probably thinking of that one friend or your partner that you know would benefit from listening to this podcast. Do the thing that is the most beautiful gift you can give anybody. Forward this along to somebody else who probably needs to have this conversation and hasn't. I think we've got to normalize talking about sex, and you can be the person to do that right now. So send this to a friend.